employees. The agreement is a significant step in strengthening the country's decentralization system and is expected to reduce frequent conflicts over resource allocation between the Senate and the National Assembly each budget year. County governments are now waiting to start receiving the funds to carry out various development activities and projects for the benefit of the people. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu. Broadcasting worldwide, SpiceFM. Online, mobile, and on radio. Instagram at SpiceFM KE.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord. It shouldn't be like that.
I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Every time he kept on saying he wants a vibrant opposition.
How does it make sense that public money has been used already and then they dare to sell it back to you? Why they're not giving them for free?
That's how broken we are. That's how broken we are.
They're being sent home now for fees. They're going to fail to prepare. We are compromising the futures of these children.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Parliament has got powers. Let me break it down. The National Assembly can initiate an impeachment of the president.
This same National Assembly.
Yes. That's our constitution.
This is just a continuation of the previous administration, which Ruto was part of. President Uhuru himself openly said that we're losing 2 billion daily. Daily. I mean, come on. Are you saying that we don't have a central bank?
If we look at Kenya, both public-private sector, that figure is ranging between 30 to 40%, right?
I think it's clear that the government of Kenya is living beyond its means.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Baba should disown these experts and they say they went there on the because he keep on telling us that these experts just you came from Dubai and you found them they're already at State House looking for jobs.
Government has to has to introduce austerity measures. It's something that this government and the previous ones have not been able to do in this country. We've talked about it so many times.
And really, I think you have seen the modus operandi of William Samoei Ruto since he came in. It's just showbiz.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Members of Parliament, they go to State House, they just promised they get given tea, mandazi, and 100,000. That's not development.
External borrowing, 589 billion. Are we on the same page? What did Parliament pass?
If anything happened to our president today, God forbid, that man would become president. Na ndio alilenga hizo stories za Shakahola.
The real thing is our constitution has only one person who is accountable to us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
I am also a publicly elected official.
Okay.
My salary is paid by your taxes.
Yes.
So if you need me to answer questions, we will not run away from you.
Asante
We
sana.
will always be here. The government itself is engaging in corrupt practices. That the government itself deliberately schemes to influence through bribery members of parliament.
You pay for a passport online. Alafu you're told there are no booklets.
I rebuke matters corruption because corruption has brought this country to its knees.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
SRC's mandate is constitutional. It's not an advice. It's actually something you must do.
Must do.
Like now you abandon, of course, the narrative of Wheelbarrow, Mutomjengo, Mamamboga, and all those, that rosy narrative.
Your expenditure is 3.3 trillion, and you're collecting only 2.5. Out of that 2.5, you're spending 1.8 trillion to service loans and so forth.
That the CDF kit, it's itself a symptom of corruption.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, can't be singing like that and then you just say good morning.
Good morning.
Sisi ambaya tuna yo deep voice here, the men.
Habari yako?
Salama kabisa.
Fresh.
Niko poa, how are you?
Niko fiti.
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
It's the 10th of June.
Kabisa.
It's 6:12.
Yeah.
We are here.
Let's just say quarter of the month is out.
Today is the 10th of June. There are 30 days in June. 30 days has September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, except February.
Yes.
I don't know the rest of them.
Because it has 28 or 29.
Exactly. So we're already a third way through the month of June, just in case anybody was wondering what today's date is. And I have a lollipop.
Okay.
Isn't it
What's the story?
Behind this lollipop? Do we have time? Just know that I've been holding it for days. And I'm about to go down the slippery slope of popping the lollipop.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but time will tell. These are the things that we can look forward to. The wistful behaviors of a child, innocent,
yes,
walking through, smelling the flowers, sucking on a lollipop, such is life.
Mambo telezi, mambo muhimu.
You what?
Silence in the room.
Silence in the room.
Yeah.
Evelyn is wearing a Lady Diana dress today.
She looks really good.
She looks very nice. And this is now the people shall exercise their sovereignty by demanding that you be shown to them, even if you turn your back. We are still seeing you.
We're still seeing you. In one way or the other.
A very good morning to you. Mutanu's here also. And Mutanu and JB look like twins today. They're wearing the same thing. It's just they have not even noticed. I'm the one who has made it very well aware. But I hope everybody's doing well today and getting into it this morning. Karibuni sana, and thank you for joining us. We're into the middle of the week. It's hump day, and everything is just downhill from here. Downhill is not necessarily a bad thing. I hear from the people who climb mountains that when you're going down, you actually have a feeling of exhilaration. So it's hump day. So karibu sana, everybody, and we get into the show this morning. Thank you for being here. And as we get into these conversations, let me tell you what we'll be talking about. Meanwhile, El Nino is doing the thing over there in Tana.
Yeah, don't joke.
And it doesn't look too pretty from where we are sitting. And it's going to come, from what they say, the winds will blow west.
Yeah.
And so let's wait and see what's going to happen. But hopefully we are all prepared. In case anybody was wondering what happened yesterday, the president, in his absence, recommended and then established through the head of public service, one Sir Felix Koskei, that the ministries of education and tourism and wildlife should do a swap-it-up-de-do and swap their PSs. So now the PS for basic education is Ole Talau, has come from the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, and one Ambassador Julius Bitok has now gone to be the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Wildlife and Tourism. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just letting you know that is what is going on at the moment. I'm sure we'll have conversations around what that means, and perhaps if it was necessary and I think the words that Felix Koskei used in his circular were express with immediate and with the consent of the president, or rather the instruction of the president. Let's see how things will change. Meanwhile, schools continue to close. And interestingly enough, day schools as well. So Ninini Mbaya, address the issues.
Address the issues.
I think this is what's going to be on my t-shirts now. Address the issue. All right. Let's talk to you about what our conversations are going to look like today. He was the first Supreme Court Justice, rather the head of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, that recommended that Parliament be resolved because they had not met the threshold of duty, and said the only thing that we can do now is dissolve Parliament. Those were the recommendations that he made to the executive. It didn't happen. He's now a presidential aspirant. He wants to be the sixth president. Sixth, Abi? Of the Republic of Kenya. Justice David Maraga, former Chief Justice, presidential aspirant 2027. Game Plan 27 is what we're talking about with him today. Arrest and fighting for a cause. He will join us in the hot seat at 7 o'clock, and we'll have conversations with him in terms of, okay, we've seen a lot of you say, well, he's the choice. Well, let's hear from him today what he's wrapping his mind around, and that's our conversation at 7 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, Gachagwa's case, constitutionalism versus options. He made it very clear yesterday that we're going to fight this one to the end, and we're going to go to the appellate court and hear what the appellate court has to say about that. All right, we'll talk about it here in the room. Eric Morioki is an advocate, as he calls himself the political risk analyst. Dismas McCaw will join us at 8 o'clock, and we'll be looking into the Gachagua case. What does it mean? A lot of people talked about political, it's over. And he said, well, not until the fat lady sings, and she hasn't even started warming up the microphone. So let's wait and see what that's going to look like. That's our conversation at 8 o'clock. And then we're going to wrap things up this morning with a conversation around conservation and development, fighting for the park. In case you're wondering what all this hullabaloo was about, is that they wanted to put a road through the national park. Remember, one of the things that you can tout about Nairobi is that it is the only city in the world that has a national park running through it. Now, do you want to kind of take that away and have a road run through it? Nyagodhie Shege. You did what?
Have a 10-story parking.
Right. Nyagodhie Shege is a board chairperson of the Greenbelt Movement, and Ashe Vishwanath is the executive director of Just Act. They'll join us at 9 o'clock, and we'll talk about what exactly it means when you want to have this kind of development in a natural setting, which you've always been able to take pride in. So those are the conversations that we're going to have today. We'll talk with Maraga at 7. We will look into the Gachagua case at 8, and then we'll go into the national park at 9. That's what the Situation Room looks like today. Dennis Aseto is here. Nduh, we're getting into the show with you today. We can see you getting in. Our live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X. Karibu sana this morning. As we get into our conversations, our audience on KTN, good morning to you, and Karibu sana for joining us in that manner. We're very, very grateful. We'll get into it in just a bit. And we'll say hello to you from wherever it is that you're tuned in from this morning. Drop a line, tell us where you are, and looking forward to welcoming you after you tell us what the Guineans, not Ghanaians, Guineans are saying this morning.
And the proverb today comes from the Fula people of Guinea, right? And it says simply, when a mother has twins, she must sleep on her back.
It's true. Everybody must be seen. If you sleep on your side and you have one child, it is that one child that you see.
Yes.
But now if you want to have, and even if it's on, and sometimes, in fact, you see now the way my brain is working. A mother who has just delivered, it is extremely uncomfortable to sleep on your back.
Yes.
However, with 2 children, if you want to then be able to have a view of what's happening from both sides, you go through the uncomfortability so that you don't get into a difficult position later when you can't have a view of one of the children.
Yes.
So sometimes in life, you might have to go through a difficult situation in order to avert a bad situation.
Yes. So, if you want to treat everybody equally, regardless of how they think of you, whether they supported you or not, you must be available to hear them all. To make a decision that will benefit everybody equally. So as a mother with twins, what do you have? If the children need to suckle, what do you do? Sleep on your back.
Exactly.
They will have access to both the titties.
Exactly.
Yes.
Both.
Yes.
That's the way to look at it. All right. So, saying hello to you this morning as we get into it. Interesting to see what folks have to say about that this morning. Karibu Sana. And let's hear where it is that you tuned in from. I say a good, big welcome to you. Good morning from Mombasa. This is Peter Kiari. You don't have to tear anyone down in order to build yourself up. Indeed. Robert Obogo says, good morning, tuning from Mombasa. Kimiak says, even as I Woman Crush Wednesday, because that's what WCW means, isn't it? Yes. On Nduh today, Kimiak, just a polite reminder that nothing good will come out of the Kenya Kwanzaa administration. Kimiak, good morning. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. Well, we hear you.
Yeah.
Definitely taking all of that into consideration. Kimiak consistency, we love it. Margaret Wajo, he says, good morning all at SpiceFM Situation Room, tuning from Houston, Texas. Let's all enjoy our favorite show. Let's do it, Kabisa. Luhimbo is tuning this morning and it says, good morning, Nduh and Aseto, tuning in from Dar. I am up and ready to be spiced. This place to be. Desmond Ortiz says, good morning. The grandchildren of Adam and Eve. Mlisikia wakisemaje kuhusu hapo nje? You, the grandchildren of Adam and Eve. I don't know, outside there is okay. Come from outside.
There is okay.
It's okay.
We just transferred water from one water boozer to another water boozer.
Or something. Bernard Nyaberi says, good morning, Spice family. The guy Bitok has failed in the ministries he's been put in, but the president seems to be resuscitating him. Yet we have able Kenyans, and here Mr. President's ready for the job. That's an interesting point, that if you've been able to bounce somebody around from place to place and there's been complaints, wouldn't the next best thing to be, excuse me, sir, come and cool your heels at home? But no, it's okay, we take you somewhere else. I don't know.
You know, there's a time I remember when President William Ruto called all the cabinet secretaries and PSs at State House and everybody signed a performance contract.
They did.
When I asked the question then, if you are to rank them, how would you rate each and every single cabinet secretary and PS, which would then determine whether you're going to keep them or let them go? So everything we keep seeing being done, is it just another PR exercise for us to see, finally we are putting in best practice, but best practice is just on paper?
I'm trying to think, and it's really difficult at this time to get an answer for the cabinet secretary that's actually, running things and doing it in a way that actually Kenyans have said, actually, this is what needs to happen. I don't know. Maybe it's because I haven't had coffee yet, but maybe somebody can help me.
There is the cabinet secretary. Is it the cabinet secretary of the PS? The guy who's in charge of water, because he's an engineer.
His name is... Good Lord, I know.
The gentleman.
Yes.
I've seen that gentleman whenever he goes to inspect projects being done, and he puts his fellow engineers to task.
Kidomi.
That gentleman.
Yes.
He's quiet, he's silent. But if
doing
you
his
follow
work.
him pole,
Yeah.
he knows his stuff.
His name is Kidomi, if I'm not wrong. Yes.
That one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We'll look for them because I think it's nice. Look, it's your job. You don't need anybody to clap you on the back, whatever. But it feels good every now and then when somebody recognizes what it is that you're doing and that you're actually getting it right. We may not be able to see it, and that's the thing about government. Truth be told, that one of the problems with government is that the communication is very poor. So even if you are doing stellar things and we can't see it, and maybe there's some underground work going on, talk about it. There's some people who shouting every day about doing nothing. So you can imagine if you're actually getting something done, tell us. Maybe we can't see the fruits yet, but at least let us know that things are in the works. And I think that those things can be celebrated regardless. A very good morning to you, Isakale. He says, moving Bitok to tourism after relentless school unrest feels like promoting the captain from a leaking ferry to a cruise ship, calling it reform. The government offered us change of scenery, not answers. Right? Nashon Gogi says, good morning, Nduh and Dennis. I have no idea why the reshuffle happened. Well, if you can't address the issue, that's the thing. Address the issue. And keep recycling your own friends. Technocrats who can be able to get things done, they are available in Kenya. Love from Arizona. You have educationalists, you have education experts. It's not too late in the game to actually bring somebody in who knows their nose from their elbow to get the thing done. You can.
Can you imagine if the government just swallowed the pride and even talks to former cabinet secretaries, former PSs who were there and asked them, hey, a guy, how do we handle this?
You have people. There are people in this country who are renowned educationalists and who actually can get the job done. I don't understand why when you see the thing burning, literally, you want to pour more petrol on it, whereby you can actually use a fire extinguisher and get somebody in there to actually streamline things. You can. I mean, it's really up to you. Mtuflani says, good morning to the princess, the gentleman, and the squad. The only sad things on newspapers should be the obituaries. Naleo Mutu Asikanyage, we are looking at you. If it's here. Leo says, good morning. Hello, Princess Nduh and Aseto. This will be an interesting World Cup where many African countries are banned or have restrictions about entering the US. They are in the World Cup. I've said it. Uncle Donald's. See, you cannot say that you are going to host as one of the tripartite members the World Cup if you're going to ban countries or refuse them to enter on restrictions or deny them visas. It is counterintuitive. Hello, sir. Is anybody listening? Marco, those guys. You are actually hosting today, by the way, today, Mexico plays South Africa. I wonder who the rest of the Africans will be cheering for. Anyway, not today, tomorrow. So what are we saying? The greatest sporting activity on the planet is taking place, hosted by you and 2 other countries. And then you have travel bans, you have restrictions, and then you have visa denies. I don't understand. It just seems like 2 things that you want to be working in tandem. It might not be a very good show, and perhaps this is something that FIFA needs to have a little tete-a-tete with the United States about. Because it doesn't look too pretty right now.
It doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. All right, quickly saying hello to everybody. Christina A, good morning to you. The convo on school was directed towards me. Is it? Linda Gola said parents are obsessed with schools. I haven't been listening to my daughter because I'm obsessed with the school performance. I mean, that's a good thing to then be able to realize, Christina. We need to listen to what these guys are telling us, because when they speak and when they don't speak, they are communicating something. So for us to listen to what they're saying, it doesn't mean we spoil them, but it means that we're hearing what they're saying and that we can all work together to make this thing better, because where we are right now, it's not good. So for you to have made that realization, kudos to you, Christina. I hope you can actually do something about that. A very good morning to you. Eric Awar says, good morning, guys. Good morning. Karibu Sana. Raim Tula Omar says, good morning from Nairobi, Kenya. Bitok transferred to tourism to go welcome visitors to Kenya. Well, that should be fun. Dr. Venvik says, good morning. Ndoto ya Wamunyoro kwa preso Now back to the drawing board. Query politics is a dirty game. I'm telling you, and I don't know if there's a laundromat in the world that can clean it. Daniel Churo says, blessing dear Nduh and Aseto. It seems inconceivable, but the plan is actually to make sure Kenya has become a failed state. Is it? All this pain this regime is putting Kenyans through is by design. Well, it looks like it's a byproduct of a lot of selfishness. That's the truth. Wanda says, good morning, Nduh and Aseto from Toronto. Happy hump day to you too. You will get over it and soon it'll be the weekend. Yeah. David Mangera says, good morning, SpiceFM. TSR, glad to be here. Nico Dani Kabisa, Nduh, Deno, and the entire crew. Kazi Safi, Asante Sana. Daniel Chur says, by the way, yesterday's conversation about schools and our children was really eye-opening, truly eye-opening. Keep on inviting such guests, please. We'll do our best. Our producer is working through, that's for sure. Big up to you, by the way, Evelyn. If we don't say it enough, Kabisa, my sister. Yeah, we can't do this without you, that's for sure. Point of correction, Nduh, the first Chief Justice was Willie Mutunga. Nope, I said the first Chief Justice to have said Parliament needed to be dissolved. Yes. He is the first one, David Maraga. Maraga is the one who gave that. So he wasn't the first Chief Justice. He's the first one to have made that declaration. Yeah. I think that's the point that I was making, Kimiak, but I hear you. Samuel Seymour says, happy Wednesday, guys. Good morning to you. Ivan Omondi says, good morning, everybody. And Owen says, good morning, vibing duo, tuning in from the Seychelles Island, Karibu Sana. And thank you for being here. Nyandika says, good morning. We are up early to look for money to pay taxes, to pay for GOK expenses. Isn't it? Yes. That guy is Eric Mureithi, the CS Water. Good morning. Yes. So I don't know if it's the CS or the PS you were talking about. So the CS is Eric Mureithi, but his PS is one Kidhomi Njeri. That's his name. Find out. We can find out. But that's who we're looking at. Georgia Dimo says, we have people in straight in the ministry, check the proposal archives. I think what you're trying to say is that there are people who can do the job. Okay, Linda Gola says, bonjour mes amis, Bitok will scare away our animals. Linda, good morning. Cradle of Mankind is tuned in this morning as well. And I think the systemic failures in governance is by design, playing into the globalist agenda puppeteers. There's a bigger angle to what's happening. I'm telling you, and I've been putting a lot of this stuff out on X, and I think that there is a design. Look, you can't, to keep you poor, to keep you uneducated, to keep you unaware, to keep you in debt, to keep you along the wheels of corruption. It is a design. I don't know how to preach it, but once we wake up, man, Africa Rising means something very different. So Cradle of Mankind, absolutely. Nyakundi Emmanuel says, good morning, Nduh. Do we change sewage from one tank to another, or do we throw it away? That's the question. So Wanda says, our Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow has said the Somali referee who was banned by the US is most welcome in our city. He can officiate a game, and we are supporting Mexico against South Africa. Cindio, it seems that everybody's doing that. Yeah, so there was this little issue of somebody being banned by the referee being banned, and somebody said, how much? Come, I'll pay you. Yeah. So the thing is, can he travel to the US? No. But he's a referee, a FIFA-appointed referee, who then has been given games to officiate. So what happens to him? These are the questions.
How about FIFA just decides that each and every single other country that has been burnt by America just goes to Canada, and those games that are supposed to be played in the US, stop. You just move them to
This is
Canada.
the thing, but you've had 4+ years of planning. Yeah. By the time you made the bid, you knew that you were going to be able to do this. Some of these things you should have been sorting out for the long time. So you're going to play state sovereignty, or your precious America, and you don't want people to come. Yeah. But then you also want to host the greatest sporting activity on the planet. Choose one, my friend. At some point, choose a struggle, my friend, and stick with it. Pick a struggle and stick with it. Ambassador Beja, very good morning to you. Isakale is telling you, Linda, that whatever it is you're drinking, they want you to continue drinking it. Millie Simi says, Bitok finally meets Watok. What? Okay, not quite sure what that is. But a very good morning. I'm telling you guys, keep the smiles on our faces every morning as we get into these conversations.
Okay.
Let's take a break and see what's happening with weather and traffic. We'll come back and look into the headlines. Good morning. Don't go away.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
All right. right, so we're looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We will then, at 14, we'll see a high of 24 and a low of 18. All right, that's later on in the day, of course. And then looking into Nakuru, cloudy conditions, and we'll come into some sunshine later with a high of 26 and a low of 12. It's 14 degrees and partly sunny into Njeri with a high of 21, and it's 19 and clear into Kisumu, while Kakamega at 15 is clear. Looking into Mombasa, 24 degrees and partly sunny conditions. It's 26 and partly sunny in Malindi, 18 and cloudy. Looking into Marsabit, while it's 20 and clear in 20 and clear into Kampala, it's 22 and sunny into Dar es Salaam. 6 degrees and clear conditions into Johannesburg, while Lagos is clear at 25. It's clear at 10 in London and 25 and sunny in Beijing, with 23 and clear conditions in New York.
Chilled Spice.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, if you are on North Airport Road this morning, you already find that there's in and outbound traffic. It's heavy and it's not moving in some parts. So it's very slow as you're trying to get out towards Embakasi and then come in through towards Embakasi East is Imaradaima, then coming into Mombasa Road. So that's a little bit busy right now, one to watch. It's also busy as you get onto Jogo Road and heading out towards Landis. I keep telling you guys, that thing that you see around Haile Selassie is not the market. That's actually Haile Selassie Avenue, the road where all those people have come. It's the road. So the traffic there is caused by humans who've decided to set up their wares there. The Thika Superhighway is crazy this morning. Inbound traffic is bumper to bumper, very slow. Today, as you come in from Kasarani, you're doing okay. But the minute you cross, you get past Kasarani and then heading out towards, all the way through towards Pangani at the underpass, heavy traffic this morning. It is Wednesday after all. Everywhere else seems to be at a dull roar for now. We'll probably get into the city with some trouble as you get onto Ngong Road. Remember, that's one lane now with that construction going on. So Naivasha Road heading towards Riara Road and then down Gong Road is busy this morning. So that's another one to watch. Before we even get into traffic hour, let's talk and keep things moving. SpiceFM, KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mom, who's this letter from? Your father wrote it before he was gone. He said he'd always find a way to take care of us. And did he? Yours, your brother's school fees, every hospital bill, our rent, every month without fail. So that's how you manage everything? Yes. He took an insurance cover from Britam, which still takes care of our expenses even after his passing. He always thought about us. He may be gone, but his love never stopped.
Britam Whole Life Plan gives you lifetime cover and a guaranteed cash payout to your family when you pass away, so they are financially taken care of. Britam Whole Life Plan. Not if, when. Britam, with you every step of the way. Regulated by the Insurance Regulatory Authority. SMS Life. Name of your town to 21778 or visit ke.britam.com.
Most people don't know that there's a best battery for your car. And when you don't have exactly the right battery, not all batteries are the same. Make sure you get exactly the right battery for your car with Chloride Exide's super powerful Exide batteries with advanced technology designed for start-stop vehicles. Choose the best for your car. Choose Chloride Exide.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 22 minutes to 7 o'clock and we're looking into headlines. If you're just joining us, this is The Situation Room. And we'll start off Kenya's bold newspaper this morning and the headline on The Standard. Absurdity. Absurdity is the commonality of being absurd. It is a group of schools for absurd.
Okay.
Exactly. It is the housing for the adjective. So the headline reads thusly. stinging critique. The High Court judgment that upheld Rigathi Gachagwa's impeachment while awarding him 50 million shillings for violation of his right to a fair hearing has triggered a legal firestorm, pitting some of Kenya's prominent lawyers against the judiciary. Remember I told you how lawyers just came out?
Yeah.
Didn't matter what term you're supporting. Lawyers came out and they were like, excuse me? And who are they pointing fingers at? The judiciary. Yes. The age-old maxim that justice must not only be done, but must also be seen to be done has taken center stage, with legal minds firing all cylinders, terming it absurd, dangerous, and a constitutional contradiction. They warn it would weaken protections for fundamental rights and embolden future abuses of power. It has also ignited debate over whether constitutional violations can be compensated with cash while the tainted outcome remains intact. Because that's what it looks like. There was a constitutional miss here, but what we're going to do is we're going to give you some 50 million.
To cool your heels in the corner.
So is that setting a precedent whereby you know that the constitution could be violated, but then you can throw some money at it and get everybody to hush hush? Well, it would seem as though folks are saying, no, the constitution is here. Anything else is down here. This is what lawyers are saying. So the judiciary needs to be they're not saying you need to be very careful. They're saying actually you need to stop it. That you can't throw cash at the problem and think that it's going to go away. Rigathi Gachagua, on the other hand, is saying, you guys thought that I was going to take this line down. Brother, no.
Yeah.
We'll look at that headline in just a minute. But protests against the US Ebola facility turns violent as Nanyuki blocked. One gentleman lost his life yesterday. He was shot. Nope. One gentleman was killed yesterday by the bullet of a police gun. And the folks in Nanyuki are saying no. We had the governor come out also yesterday and say, excuse me, we need to make sure that this thing is not going to violate rights. And we're looking at the violation of rights here, and that's fundamental, and we're saying no. That's all happening while global health bodies unveil a plan to fast-track a vaccine for the Ebola strain. This particular strain of Ebola that we're dealing with right now has no vaccine, okay?
Yep.
So that's what is a worrisome for a lot of people. Now, it's interesting because this is a story still on page 2. Victims of Sudan's RSF war crimes file case in Kenya. Hello?
Yep.
It might be bigger than you actually think. Victims of Sudan's RSF war crimes file case in Kenya. Okay. PSB talk moved as state rules out school closure. This is on page 3. They're saying we're not closing schools, but what we're going to do in the meantime is we're going to move the guy. It's kind of like what the guys are saying happened in the court. So there was a violation of the Constitution. We're not going to say that they were wrong. We're just going to give you some cash. We're not going to close schools even though things are going belly up. And the fella who's supposed to be sorting out some of these issues in basic education, we're not going to put him to task. We're just going to move him over here.
That has been the practice in this republic. If you just remember that there would be a police officer who's killed people in one police station and would be transferred to another.
Him somewhere else.
Thinking you've solved the situation.
Yeah. Address the issue. Sifuna seeks to nullify ODM removal move. That is still a hot case. It's still ongoing. It's still alive. Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna has asked the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal to declare the Orange Democratic Movement resolution removing him as Secretary General unlawful, arguing that both the decision and subsequent disciplinary action against him are legally flawed. And so that case, like I said, is still alive. He's still pushing that particular agenda to remain Secretary General, or rather to deem the process of his withdrawal as an illegality.
Yes.
Treasury's tax proposals that threaten to stall EV momentum, EV being electric vehicles, and that apparently they're saying that you want to move the economy in one direction, but your tax proposal is actually threatening to bring it to a standstill.
Yeah.
How IMF pressure shaped Ruto's tax hikes. That the IMF, this is not your kitchen. In fact, it's not it's not even your world. But somehow you are the chef with the spoon saying, add salt, remove pepper. That's what the IMF is.
Just read that
IMF
sub.
is in your kitchen.
Just read that sub. The lender has demanded Kenya to address its budget shortfall by introducing new taxes and reduce spending. One thing is being done. We are introducing new taxes but increasing spend.
Yeah. And somebody can actually come and tell you, somebody who doesn't even know how to make egusi soup, is telling you to add mincemeat.
Yes.
Do you understand? No. So they have to ask yourself the question continuously about what is it that you've given over to the IMF when they can come and tell you how to do it, when to do it. Do they tell that to France? Top legal minds fault absurd ruling one sets bad precedents. And of course, that's the story that comes from the headline. Now, this is where Gachagua says, gloves off, the fat lady ain't singing. And he has said that he has termed the court verdict on his removal as paradoxical.
Yep.
And basically, his people have said, appeal, sign me up. That's what we're doing. According to Gitile Naituli, Gachagua ruling exposes dangerous contradictions, and he's brought that up. Now, this is interesting. The ICC, you know that court? The International Criminal Court.
Yes.
You know the prosecutor?
Karim Khan.
His name is Karim Khan. You know what happened yesterday? They suspended him over sex abuse claims. They didn't ask him, excuse me, sir, did you do it? They didn't ask whoever, did this happen? No. The fact that there was a whiff, there was an aroma, there was something. They said, no. Before we even find out what happened, just be waiting over here first.
Yes.
Am I saying something to somebody?
Stop everything you're doing.
Just drop it. Just wait. Before we even start asking what happened where. Somebody has claimed. And because of the stain that a claim like that already leaves on your person and office, we're going to ask you to step aside for a moment. Hello? Saying something.
Yes.
Khan has repeatedly denied allegations of misconduct. Decision to suspend him was reached by a majority of the Bureau of the ASP. The International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan has been suspended pending the final phase of a sexual misconduct investigation and a vote by the Assembly of State Parties. That's the ASP. So they've not even figured out whether he did it or not. But they're saying with these claims, and even with your deny, that we are saying, just wait a minute. This doesn't look good for yourself, for us as the ASP, or as the court. The Bureau of the ASP said it had chosen to escalate the matter to the court's highest governing body. Khan is a prominent British lawyer, has repeatedly denied the allegations, but they're saying, for now, just be waiting.
Yes.
Parents advised to register children with disabilities, please. It's necessary because there is a special care that they require.
True.
If you have children, and I'm just going to put this out here, if you have children with disability, you need to have them registered. This is something that the government is asking you to do. It is necessary to do because they do need extra special care. If they do not know, they cannot apply this care. So please don't hide them in the houses.
If they do not know, they do not know how to budget for them.
They can't budget for
because they can only budget based off the numbers that they have. So if the numbers are few and others have not been registered, you find others being left out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't hide them in the house. Government is saying bring them, register them so that we know how to take care of them. So please, in this one, please do. Youth urged to fight hate speech and promote peace ahead of polls. Another thing that I agree with, you can't curtail, you cannot manage the amount of vitriol and hate that comes out when you allow something like this to be. In the opinion pages of The Standard today, quite a number of people have a thing or two to say. Faith Odhiambo, the former LSK president, a constitutional democracy is built on the integrity of its processes, not merely its outcomes. We must ensure that the right to a fair hearing in Kenya remains substantive and not merely symbolic.
Yes.
Faith Wekesa also talks about the arrest of Maraga, who will join us in a short while, on the state of our democracy. Get yourself a copy of The Standard. A copy of the e-paper is also available online. Over to you, sir.
So let's go to the Daily Nation. And Daily Nation, the headline there is Gachagua's Defend. Now, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has vowed to fight the High Court decision that upheld his impeachment, even as he announced a 45-day political conclave starting next week to come up with a single opposition candidate to face President William Ruto in the 2027 poll. So he's saying, even as I explore the appeal mechanism, I'm going to take a break. When I come back, perhaps I will be giving you guys the presidential candidate to go head with President William Ruto in 2027. Now, fresh queries over Kenya's Ebola test. The Ministry of Health could be declaring individuals tested for Ebola negative and releasing them back into the population before the lapse of the mandatory 21-day incubation period. You know what that means? We do not know exactly who is clear of Ebola and who is not, because we are releasing them to the public before the 21-day incubation and quarantine that should take place. Worry, you must be. Now, congestion, hunger, peer pressure, the troubles in our schools, in our public schools now, a wave of student unrest across the country has left schools counting losses, families mourning deaths, and education stakeholders warning of a deeper crisis. You know what needs to happen? Fix the problem.
Address
the issue. Once you address the issue, you'll find these cases reducing and actually ending. More pain for patients as SHA system outage enters day 4.
Sorry?
Yes.
No, I didn't hear you.
More pain for patients as SHA system outage enters day 4.
4 days of SHA
4
outage.
days,
All
yes.
right.
So the Social Health Authority's platform went down Sunday, and with it, the promise that no Kenyan would be denied care because of inability to pay.
Okay.
Now I know why.
When you went to hospital?
It did not work.
All right.
It has never worked for me. Yes. Now, puzzle of tested individuals declared Ebola free before mandatory 21 day. That is on page 2. And in page 3, Nanyuki protesters arrested after day-long demos against planned quarantine facility. Remember, there is a court order that stops the construction of that quarantine facility.
Yep.
However, there are reports that you're getting that the construction is ongoing. The United States as well has said they are hoping to get into an agreement with the government of Kenya and that the issues would be resolved. And Gachagua in page 4 says, down but not out. Defiant Gachagua plans retreat to chart way forward for 2027. In page 6, judgment doesn't diminish Gachagua's influence in Mount Kenya region, his allies say. Now, former deputy president's backers say they will work to ensure region does not suffer vote apathy in the 2027 elections. Many have said that decision perhaps is denting Gachagua's political influence in the region because many are looking at him with impeachment being upheld, then him holding public office stops being a reality.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ruto drums up EU support for trade and investment. There's a question that we were asked yesterday. There is an agreement that I think President Uhuru Kenyatta got into, EU-Kenya agreement. Where are we with that? We're signing new deals, but you're not looking at the progress of already existing deals and agreements that have been there before. So what exactly are we doing? Launching and counter-launching. Counties to receive 428 billion shillings as deadlock on crucial bill ends. So there's that as well. Counties want their money. Time is coming to an end. Now, new malaria prevention campaign in Kakuma refugee camp is ongoing. That is in page 8 and in page 9. Little food, cramped spaces, rising frustration is the trouble in schools. Can I repeat?
Say it again.
Little food, so they're talking about portions. Cramped spaces, overcrowding, rising frustration, the trouble in schools. If you address this, perhaps you'll see comfortable children.
Yeah. Address the issues.
Address the issues. Address the issues. Address the issues. Now, bodies of 16 Utumishi fire victims to be released on Friday. So amount 200,000 is amount each family will receive to support burial preparations alongside houses and transport, including 14-seater matatu to ferry relatives to the memorial venue. Many families have said, stop it. Give us our children to go bury them so that we can start the healing process early. That memorial service doesn't make sense to us.
Yeah, okay.
So questions of a stalled probe into 6.3 billion shillings diverted e-citizen funds. So records show witnesses were granted additional time after they reportedly asked for more time to prepare the submissions. So the audit flagged irregular diversion of funds, but a parliamentary inquiry has stalled. So 6.3 billion shillings were diverted from e-citizen. There is a matter in court. However, the parliamentary inquiry into how 6.3 billion shillings allegedly got lost,
as it's not going on.
That is our money. That exercise has stalled.
Why has it stalled?
So you're told Parliament's probe into the alleged unauthorized diversion of 6.3 billion shillings in e-citizen revenue into an Equity Bank account has stalled weeks after the Auditor General flagged the irregular transaction and lawmakers initially demanded accountability. However, the inquiry by the National Assembly Public Accounts Committee has since gone quiet after members backtracked on planned hearings into the matter. Okay. Need I add more?
Breathe, child of God. Because that money is still missing.
Yep.
Quote unquote missing.
Missing.
It's gone into an equity account.
Mm-hmm.
Has that money been returned to eCitizen?
Yep.
No. You want to find out where it went so that perhaps you can hold somebody culpable? Yes. Have you gone ahead and done that? No. So why? This is part of what you're supposed to be doing. Why would you not want to find out how much is the money we're talking about?
6.3 billion.
6.3 billion shillings. Perhaps. I don't know.
Because
remember that with 4 billion shillings, with 4 billion shillings, you can build in every in every county 85 classrooms. Every county in this country could get 85 classrooms with 4 billion shillings. 4 billion. This one I'm talking about 6.something billion. And nobody is any bothered about how you can actually retrieve the money, hold somebody accountable.
Yep.
No.
Remember, the Auditor General has done her job, flagged the problem and submitted the report to the National Assembly, who are supposed then to proceed with that matter and inquire what really happened so that justice can be delivered to the people of Kenya. Kenyans, please look at the people you voted in and ask them what their role is in that house.
I'm tired tomorrow. Tomorrow.
You're tired tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think on that note, let's look at the Star.
Opposition and lawyers poke holes in the Rigathi Ulster verdict because the lawyers, I'm going to stick on the lawyers here.
Yep.
Because the Wakilis are saying, the Wakili nation is saying, hello, what kind of precedent are you setting with this? And they all seem to be speaking the same language when they're saying, nah, guys, the Constitution is the one that we're supposed to be following. And if we're supposed to be following it to the letter, but that you see that, okay, this hole doesn't really matter. Guess what? A little hole is going to get into a bigger hole. Remember that song that Harry Belafonte sang? There's a hole in my bucket, dear Eliza, there's a hole in my bucket, dear Eliza, a hole. What did Eliza say to Uncle John? Henry? Well, fix it, dear Henry, fix the hole. Come on.
In this case, we're telling you, please dig deeper.
Hey,
dear Henry, dig deeper. Yeah.
Flooding hits Tana again as El Nino looms. And there's pictures there. I don't know if we can zoom into it, but that's what's happening in parts of the country, that people are actually taking boats from point A to point B. Houses are submerged, and people are having to walk through shin-length water already. Kenya Red Cross personnel rescue residents after devastating flood swept through Tarasa, in Tana Delta sub-counties in Tana River County. The floods, which have affected the region for more than a month, have submerged villages, schools and health facilities. So you want to ask your question, how are children going to school? How are the sick getting care?
A month.
Disrupting livelihoods and essential services across the county. A month. This has been going on for a month. All right, big read inside the plan to turn around Kenya Airways. You want to look into that because there is Bwana Kitonyi who's giving a lot of information about what's going to happen. The design of the proposed new JKA is actually beautiful.
Beautiful, yeah.
If it can actually come to fruition, it would be great.
There are also reports that KQ wants to run a certain national airline in a different country. I don't know.
Finish this one first now. Fix this one. Do you see the problem? We seem to have the same. Fix it.
Restore the pride of Africa.
Yeah. More than 70 schools are probably looking at 100 closed, students sent home following unrest, and now we're having day schools joining in here. Seems to be an issue. In case you were looking for the president, he is away. I think he's come back today, if I'm not wrong. President William Ruto and Norwegian Finance Minister Jens Stoltenberg on government guest house in Oslo yesterday. Ruto overseas trips bring in billions in investment, says spokesman Hussein. This is a good thing, and I think we saw Hussein in his statement the other day on X step a little bit outside of the ordinary, and he was like saying, "Oye, Belgium, oye," because the billions from Belgium are coming in. The president is busy. Kenyans push for strict penalties in importation of bombs, tear gas. Yeah. You have to have a little bit extra bucks there if you're going to use it for something. Let's know what exactly you're using it for, and it's got to be solid. You pay a little bit extra for it. That's what they're saying. Lake Victoria on alert as leaders now push for Ebola measures. They're saying, okay, it's possible that we're going to have a lot of people crossing over, so we need to be very, very careful in terms of screening there. Officials blame domestic conflict for school unrest. I don't think there is one reason. I think there is a plethora of reasons as to why the school unrest is now a little bit worse than it has been, but it's still the second term. And I think that some of the issues have been there for 30 years. I believe that there are new issues also with time.
Yeah.
But I think that there are many issues as to why there's school arrest. But guess what? They are not going to go away because you've opened the window. You have to deal with the issues. If children across the country are complaining about food, it's not because they are bored. If there is overcrowding, there's an issue. If teachers are not well equipped, there's an issue.
If capitation
doesn't go to schools, there's an issue. And let's not fool ourselves to think for a minute that teachers don't let their frustrations be known to students. Let's not deceive ourselves that this is an ecosystem of learning and everybody talks about what they're going through. So don't just think that it is children who have issues and that's why there's school unrest. That these issues are being transferred also in terms of letting the public know that there's a problem. Teachers use students a lot as well. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's happening. Those are the issues. We're looking into them this morning. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leo Ubaga. Detectives from the DCI are investigating a case where several bodies were found buried in Mungai Town, Kitui County in graves. Officers arrived in the area yesterday and cordoned off as forensic experts began exhuming more bodies amid fears that there may be more victims buried in different locations. The operation was launched after body parts were found in the area on Monday this week, almost a month after two other decomposed bodies were found in the same place. Now, residents of Mungai have raised concerns after the police failed to identify the victims who were initially found, raising concerns that the killings may have taken place in other locations before their bodies were buried in Mungai.
Tulikuwa tunaona tu inzi pale juu kidogo, lakini hatunge suspect kuna watu. So ya pili tumepata chini ya kando ya river, wanachimba kwa ukuta ya kamto, wanaingiza hapo ndani. Tumepata mtu wa pili pale mbele ya hiyo stream, mbele yake tumepata mtu wa tatu pale. Then nyuma kidogo katikati tumepata another mtu mwingine hapo. Hao watu wote hakuna mtu ako na nguo na wamekunjwa, wamepangwa, ile mikono inapoletwa hapo karibu, miguu inakunjwa.
Mungai Central Police Commander Anthony Minor has urged members of the public with missing relatives to report to Mungai Central Police Station to assist in the investigation.
Ukienda nyumbani, kwa sababu hatuna kesi hata moja ya mtu ameripotiwa amepotea area hii yetu. Ikiwa wewe uko na relative ameripotiwa amepotea, tafadhali sana kuja piga nini? Report, si ndio?
And former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua will now move to the Court of Appeal to challenge the Supreme Court's decision that upheld his removal from office by the Senate. In a press conference, Gachagua, who was accompanied by his supporters in Karen, also described the court's decision as a constitutional coup, citing conflicting arguments made by the judges. According to Gachagua, the three-judge panel hearing his impeachment case erred in law in its decision, citing the fact that he was not given a full hearing as stipulated in the Constitution as part of the loopholes the court failed to consider, while rejecting the 50 million shillings compensation awarded to him by the court.
Just like the millions of you, I'm shocked by the 350-page decision of the three-judge bench of the High Court of Kenya, pronouncing under Article 50 of the Constitution was violated, and then ironically purporting to uphold the impeachment. There was no impeachment. This was a constitutional coup, an abuse to the people of independent Kenya. We shall proceed to file an appeal at the Court of Appeal on the decision and hope that justice shall prevail. The 50 million Kenya shillings awarded to me is an insult to my fundamental rights and freedoms and a mockery of the Constitution. we are not interested.
Following the decision, Gachagua has announced that he'll take a 45-day break to reflect and strategize with fellow opposition coalition leaders to decide who will fly the presidential flag in the 2027 general elections. He has also stressed that he can still run for president, making it clear that after the opposition coalition meeting in the Western region, he'll take the break.
After this weekend, when I go to Western, you will not see me again in political mobilization. We are moving now into the phase of strategy to identify one single presidential candidate.
That the work of political mobilization to remove President William Ruto from office is complete, and there is no need for further political mobilization. They have now tasked me to engage of what in their view is of utmost priority: the identification of a single presidential candidate to face President William Ruto.
That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Parliament has got powers. Let me break it down. The National Assembly can initiate an impeachment of the president.
This same National Assembly.
Yes.
That's our constitution.
This is just a continuation of the previous administration, which Ruto was part of. President Uhuru himself openly said that we're losing 2 billion daily. Daily. I mean, come on. Are you saying that we don't have a central bank?
If we look at Kenya, both public-private sector, that figure is ranging between 30 to 40%, right?
I think it's clear that the government of Kenya is living beyond its means.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Baba should disown these experts and say they went there on the, because he keep on telling us that these experts you came from Dubai and you found them there already at State House looking for jobs.
Government has to has to introduce austerity measures. It's something that this government and the previous ones have not been able to do in this country. We've talked about it so many times.
And really, I think you have seen the modus operandi of William Samoei Ruto since he came in. It's just showbiz.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Members of parliament, they go to State House, they just promised they get given tea, mandazi, and 100,000. That's not development.
External borrowing, 589 billion. Are we on the same page? What did Parliament pass?
If anything happened to our president today, God forbid, that man would become president. Na ndio alilenga hizo stories za Shakahola.
The real thing is our constitution has only one person who is accountable to us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A very good morning to you. It's 7 minutes after 7 o'clock and into the second hour of the Situation Room this Wednesday morning. And as we get into it, a reminder that our live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X across platforms. And our audience on KTN this morning, a very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us in the room. In the hot seat this morning, CJ Emeritus David Maraga is with us today, and it's been a very busy couple of days for him, but he's here either way, and we're going to have a conversation around a number of things, but joins us in the hot seat this morning regardless. CJ, good morning.
Good morning, madam. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, good to see you, and karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're going to discuss quite a number of things today, of course, look into certain areas, and so we thank you. Interpretation is something that you do for a living. Yeah. So let's see into some of these things today as we get into it. Karibu sana. As you know, Dennis takes us to a different African country every week. This week we are in Guinea, and he's come with the proverbs. We'd love your interpretation
of the same.
Yeah,
but a few things in Guinea is they are the largest producers of bauxite, which is used in production of aluminium. Now, aluminium tends to be one of the most expensive metal as we speak today, because think about any vehicle today, and aluminium is an important component in the production, especially of engines and even body panels. But let's go to the proverb. When a mother has twins, she must sleep on her back. When a mother has twins, she must sleep on her back. How would you interpret it?
The interpretation is that the mother should be careful not to lie on either. I mean, naturally you would expect the mother to have both the babies, one on this side and one on the other. Yeah. So the best way is to lie on the back. The idea is to make sure that you don't lie on the baby. That's my understanding.
That's beautiful.
I say it's a great interpretation.
It's a great interpretation, yeah.
Absolutely.
You talk about safety and security of the people she loves.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, we haven't seen it before, that a former CJ then is going to be bundled into a vehicle and arrested after having, expressed certain concerns over certain things. So, day before yesterday was an interesting day. I mean, we're talking about your political aspirations, your presidential aspiration, but at the same time also fighting for a particular thing. And then we saw what we saw in terms of what happened when you were arrested. Give us a little bit of information about what that was all about and why this happened.
Thank you very much, Nduh. There was a proposal, or there is a proposal that was made to Kenya Wildlife Service for excision of some land in Nairobi National Park. Ostensibly for the relocation of the orphanage. The argument being that where the orphanage has become a little crowded, especially with the traffic going in. And but then they first started with I think 20 something acres for that relocation. The acreage kept mutating. Then it went to 76, and eventually it ended in 89 acres. There was no proper public participation. When you are having an issue like that happening in Nairobi, one would expect a town hall, a hearing, so that the residents of Nairobi could be heard. What KWS did, it just gave a few NGOs limited hearing and approved the excision of 87 acres of Nairobi National Park. As I've said, ostensibly for the relocation of the orphanage, and now build a car park of a capacity of 1,300 acres. I mean, 300 cars. Eventually, it came out that the main issue is to provide a parking for the Bomas International Conference Center, which is being built across. Because if you see that they are talking about even a walkway to that area that is going to be over a footbridge over Langata Road. So I mean, we understood that to be a very, very serious encroachment onto the national park. Remember, Nairobi National Park is the only national park in the world in the capital city. And it is being there is extremely important. You know, Nairobi is becoming a concrete jungle. Yes. Actually, you need to go to Ngong Hills and look at Nairobi. You will see the pollution. In fact, you will see like Nairobi is in smoke. So a national park like this one was planned to enable fresh air to the residents in Nairobi. That's not all. It's a great tourist attraction. So if we continue doing this, we will soon, you will find Kenya bidding to host the World Cup. And then they will say, look, let's build another, stadium in the national park. Development is not supposed to be at the expense of the environment. So I joined the Greenbelt movement, the Friends of Nairobi National Park, and other organizations which were opposed to this excision. In my capacity as the leader of United Green Movement Party, which among whose objectives is to preserve the environment. So we went there, and initially everything was okay. In fact, the police allowed the march. Uniformed police were there. They were controlling the traffic, and we moved. But another group of policemen in civilian clothes, they just came and tear gassed us, and then bundled them into and others into 30 truck and took us to Langata police station.
On what charge?
I haven't been told even now.
Okay, and you were let go at the end of the day, from what we understand, on a free bond.
When I got to the police station, I was told, CJ, because you are a senior citizen, we will let you go. Okay. You are free to go. I said, no, I can't go. Most of those people who were arrested were my security officers and some from my party. So I said, look, these people came here because I was here. How do I now walk out and leave them?
Leave them here.
That would be terrible betrayal. And I said I would not leave unless we are all released. If they are not being released, please get them into those cells, and I sleep there with them.
Yeah. CJ, when you talk about public participation, which has been bond of contention for a very long time in Kenya, it's seemingly eroding to a point where public participation seems to be another suggestion, not something that is keen of being respected. Now, when you talk about development, even today in Nairobi, if you want to sink a borehole, there is an impact assessment test that you have to pass, and NEMA has to approve for you to sink that borehole.
Correct.
Now, here we're talking about construction of what would be a car park inside the Nairobi National Park, and the impact assessment test, Nairobi citizens have not been furnished with that to look at the effects that would have. And when we talk about also public participation, I, for instance, never saw the advertisement for me to be part and parcel of that, because I am a resident of Nairobi and a Kenyan for that matter, which speaks to the rule of law. Has the Constitution been reduced to a suggestion and not the cardinal rule and law that governs the country?
Exactly, you have said it. Quite a number of people wanted to reduce the Constitution to a suggestion. The Constitution is a command. And unless we regard it as so, we are going to go into anarchy. What is happening now, where public participation is required, is some tokenish kind of process that is given, and it is called public participation. In fact, like this one, I mean, they, as I told you, the acreage kept mutating, and the KWS was reluctant to give full information as to exactly what they wanted to do. And here, when eventually it came out that they required a car park for the Bomas International Conference Center. Who are the owners of Bomas? How is the public going to benefit? First of all, Bomas of Kenya has been leased to that conference center for 40 years. So, by the time it reverts, whatever construction is going to be done there reverts to the Kenyan people to begin reaping their benefits. You will need a reconstruction of that. So this is all intended to benefit public interests at the expense of a national heritage. Nairobi National Park is 90 years old. Is this something we want to give away so easily like that?
Right.
And it's a serious thing. That's why I thought it was worthy joining the others and protesting and saying no. We should be careful. This is the same trend. It is now becoming a trend. Yeah. Recently, we were told that there are plans to excise. Is it 200 acres in Imenti forest?
Yes.
To build a state lodge. And a golf course,
which the Meru have more or less refused. They've said no.
They have refused.
Yes.
They have refused. This is the same thing recently logging was allowed in Mau Forest.
Yes.
Remember, 27 counties out of 47 counties in Kenya are arid and semi-arid. So what we are doing by this kind of acts is actually an extension of the arid area. When we should be doing the opposite. We should be doing everything possible to minimize the effects of arid areas. But we are doing the opposite. We are not even thinking about climate change. When it suits us, we talk about climate change. We talk about planting, is it how many billion trees?
15
billion trees. You go to Karura Forest, cut down the forest in the name of having seedlings. I mean, it is interesting.
It's interesting that you say these things, and CJ, even as you're involved in this, because we know that your party, then of course, is very big on the environment and things like this, and that this is something that you've always been involved in. But the question is, to get into activism, is it because that you feel that these things should be abided by, whether they're constitutional, whether they're environmental, or is it because you are an aspirant for the presidency that you are now involved physically on the ground in this activism? It's a question that is out there.
Some people would want to read my act in different ways. But what is important is this. Is this the way we want to manage our resources? Is this the way we want to manage our resources? I say no. I have been involved in issues that relate to the Constitution. Public participation is a constitutional requirement. And unless we are ready to enforce the Constitution, we will run into great risks. You will have, we will be entrenching the impunity in the actions of government officials in this country. And that, in my view, should not be allowed.
Allow me to connect it to the very famous considerations that you then gave out as you were exiting the stage as CJ. And you said very clearly that Parliament ought to be dissolved if on anything that they were not able to attain the 2/3 gender rule. And you said, in this case, the executive has only one job to do: vacate Parliament, right? Now, you've been hanging on to the threads of the Constitution, and we see things over and over and over again that legal minds, as well as judicial officers, would say that this flies in the face of the Constitution. You've just mentioned public participation. When we talk about presidential aspirants, it's not just somebody wanting to be president, but it is somebody who is involved in and engaged in the activities of constitutionalism.
Exactly.
The other day, there was a court hearing, ruling. I'm not even going to talk about the individual, but I'm going to talk about the processes of constitutionalism, where from the mouth of judges, it was clear that there was an aspect of constitutionalism that was not adhered to. But what they did was compensate for it. What should be done as per interpretation when you see that an aspect of the Constitution has not been adhered to? Do you say, let's go and do it again? Or do you put some money at it? Coming also from a CJ who nullified an entire election based on procedure. What should happen when the Constitution has not been followed?
Thank you. You brought in here two issues.
Yes.
The first one is my advisory to the President to dissolve Parliament under Article 261. Quite a number of people criticized my decision, but I want you to look at it this way. This was one of the transitional provisions, as we call it, that required Kenya, Parliament, to enact legislation to actualize the 2/3 gender rule. Parliament was given 5 years to do that. At the time the application came to me, it was over 9 years. And what the evidence I had before me was what I call tokenish kind of thing. Parliament was not serious. There were bills. When it is supposed to sit, they were saying we don't have quorum, we don't have this, and the act went on. And the provisions of Article 261 were mandatory. There were, I think, 4 court orders. Directing Parliament to pass that legislation. Now, recently, a decision of the High Court declared my advisory unconstitutional on the ground that the order of the court, the High Court, before the matter came to me, had not been transmitted to the speakers of the National Assembly and the Attorney General. I looked at that and I was asking myself, the issue was that this order was not transmitted to Parliament. What is transmission? What is the purpose of transmission? The purpose of transmission is to bring it to the attention of Parliament that this order has been passed. The order was passed in the presence of the lawyers of Parliament.
Yes. Now, that's not all. Parliament actually appealed against that order. And the Court of Appeal dismissed its appeal. Then you now say, because the order was not transmitted as the Constitution says. I mean, the Constitution, you have to read the spirit of the Constitution. What is the purpose? The same Constitution says that substantive justice should not be undermined by procedural technicalities
Article 159(2) D of the Constitution. So my understanding is this is sometimes courts should also be careful not to, in fact, almost. I don't want to use the word undermine the constitutional provisions, but they should read the Constitution as a whole and see that the substantive justice in this case required the requirement of substantive justice in this case is to bring it to the attention of Parliament, so that Parliament is not blamed for what it doesn't know. Yes. Now coming to the other issues about violation of constitutional provisions. I don't know which case you had in mind.
Well, let's go with the Gachagua ruling that went out on Tuesday. On Monday, actually.
Yes. I saw that judgment, and a lot of things came to my mind. I was asking myself a lot of things. Under Article 225, I believe, is it 2C? The right to a fair hearing is sacrosanct. What does that mean? Actually, the provisions in the Constitution, the wording in the Constitution is that it cannot be limited. What is the message from here? It is the importance of the right to a hearing, to a fair hearing. The court finds that Honorable Gachagua was not given a fair hearing. And he has been impeached. In my view, after that finding, the inevitable conclusion should have been to annul that impeachment. Why do I say so? Sometimes the argument I saw in the judgment is that acts the process has proceeded. A new deputy president has been appointed. You can't reverse some of those acts. If I recall, in Gachagua's petition, he actually said, look, he doesn't want reinstatement as the deputy president. He made it very clear to the court. So, when a right to a hearing is sacrosanct, the proper interpretation, in my view, is to annul what the Senate had done. And some of the provisions of our law are meant to be deterrent. If you allow this, that you can trample upon the rights of somebody, give him a few shillings, and the life continues. And particularly so when the 50 million is not coming from the pockets of the senators themselves. It is coming from the Senate. The fine or the damages are awarded against the Senate, not against the individual senators who actually voted for the impeachment. What is the effect of that? Government officers will continue violating the Constitution, knowing that they will not be punished individually. We will be entrenching the culture of impunity in our systems.
CJ, in the nullification of the 2017 election, one of the reasons given was because of the process did not meet the threshold. We look at, again, the impeachment process here, where even the court itself said that the National Assembly did everything according to the law and the Constitution, but when it comes to the Senate, it did not meet the process. The process, therefore, means whatever happens in the National Assembly and whatever happens in the Senate, everything forms the complete process. Correct. When one part of the process fails, the entire process has failed. It can't be that a single part works, another one doesn't work, and that you can proceed with that. That means that by continuing with the position where we find ourselves today, what we are doing is abrogating the constitution and continuing with an illegality.
Correct.
And therefore, for us to move forward, it does not matter whether there is another deputy president or not. The constitution is clear. If you do not follow the process, even the person holding the office is there illegally. Could I be right? Would Kenyans be right to think like that?
Why not? In my advisory, the arguments that have been put to me was that if you recommended the dissolution of parliament, the country is not going to have budget bust. The country is not going to this. This is a constitutional provision which was put there with the clear understanding of the role of parliament. And in the advisory, I said, look, there is no gain. In some situations, there is no gain without pain. If you want to stamp out illegal acts, there is going to be inconvenience to be caused. There is going to be even serious damage caused. But if that is what we should go through so that we respect the law, sometimes it is important. Sometimes it's extremely important. If we don't take, firm action in some cases, the constitution will be a suggestion and not a command, as we have rightly put it. And that is how a country slowly degenerates into a failed state. A failed state doesn't come in one day. It is a process of illegal acts being performed without being declared null and void. Yeah. So we should. That's why I am a very strong advocate of constitutionalism and the rule of law. Without that, you run into anarchy. Yeah.
And unfortunately, it looks as though there are very many examples of what you speak about. And again, I'm going to that you, as a presidential aspirant, has been very firm on the rule of law.
Yes.
And people might say, okay, well, it's not very exciting, but it's the fundamentals that we're talking about here.
Yes.
And that if you don't have them, then essentially your state, as you say, could fall apart. But for everything that seems to be going wrong, there seems to have been a court order somewhere to then be able to protect it. Whether it is security, that's again a suggestion. Whether it's safety and health, again, conservatory orders have been given for certain things to then be done, and it seems to be ignored. There are people who are protesting in Laikipia today. You were protesting in the national park the other day and being arrested for it. There are children who should be receiving capitation as per the law. It doesn't happen. That your debt should not be beyond a certain number. It hasn't happened. That a debt ceiling is not supposed to be, you can't go beyond the ceiling. Once you're at the ceiling, you've ended at the end of the house, but we seem to be able to keep going beyond that. What am I asking? As a presidential aspirant, these things are going to be knocking you in the face over and over and over again. What needs to be done? We can politicize things, but what actually needs to be done to sort out some of these things from where you sit? You seem to say that you cannot flirt with impunity because it'll take you over. You must deal with it. How would you deal with it?
Thank you very much. Talking about the demonstrations in Nanyuki, is it one or two people who were shot there yesterday?
One.
And there were also demonstrations by Multimedia University, and I believe two people were also shot dead. Very many things come into one's mind in a situation like this one. First of all, the police are required by law to use force, especially when you go using the firearm in very exceptional circumstances, extremely exceptional circumstances. I have not seen the whole clip of what transpired in Nanyuki to require use of firearm. I have not seen the clip on what requires the use of firearm against students. In most cases, all those people were unarmed. The police are supposed to use a firearm when, in fact, the policeman's life is in danger. Eh? Because we do not condemn some of these acts, they're being repeated over and over again, and that's what I'm saying. Look, unless we are firm on this, we are going to cast the rule of law aside, and now you act as you want. And I mean that is a very, very serious abrogation of the law. So what we are saying is, let us comply with the law. Our best safeguard is compliance with the law and saying no to illegal acts that are being perpetrated. Without that, we are going to run into very serious problems. Come to Nanyuki. Why are these people demonstrating? Kenya is, one of the countries in the world which should cooperate with other countries. You can't operate in isolation. Yes. When there is an epidemic, Kenya should cooperate with other countries to contain that epidemic. Now, look at the issue of Ebola. Ebola is in DRC Congo. People are traveling from there, and they can easily transmit it to others in Kenya and other places. Ordinarily, if it was being done well, this is something which should have been discussed by US on almost an equal basis. You get it from the US government saying, look, we cannot allow even our own citizens who are infected with Ebola to come to US. But you can take them to Kenya. That alone is terribly condescending. What message is America sending to Kenya? The American, the life of the Americans is more important than those of Kenyans. And I think that is the offensive thing that has brought about all these protests against Ebola. And in any case, scientific advice is that an epidemic like this one should be contained at source. Yes. So the quarantine should have been done in DRC Congo. Why do you have to do it in Kenya? The argument that we have an agreement with America, I mean, the logical conclusion was to contain it out there. Yeah? Why extend the provisions of that agreement to bring the quarantine to Kenya? I agree that some Kenyans traveling from DRC Congo could also get infected and bring the virus to Kenya. Measures should be taken, and if this one was being taken properly, with the Kenya being considered as an equal partner, and not with those condescending remarks, it would not have raised this kind of uproar.
This raises the question on sovereignty.
Exactly.
And Kenya's position and in its diplomatic circles and how it engages with everybody else. Because even the construction of that quarantine facility, many are asking the questions because the United States of America is saying, we are setting up this quarantine facility for American citizens who have been infected by the disease. There is nowhere there is conversations that Kenyans as well who at any point get infected will have access to that facility. But that notwithstanding, again, you read everything together with scientific advice and what doctors are suggesting, and that Kenya now seemingly has lost its sovereignty, that it can be directed by another state on what they want to do on our soil. Exactly. And one asks the question, are Kenyans really being listened to? Or are Kenyans there to be seen and not to be heard?
Exactly. The under foreign policy, the government, the first thing the government is supposed to consider is the interests of the country. You've talked about sovereignty. That's why I said, according to the Americans, the life of a Kenyan is not as important as that of an American. What are you talking about? That's a violation of our sovereignty. So, and what these people who are demonstrating, what our fellow Kenyans who are demonstrating are saying is, let us be treated as equal partners. Let us not be reduced to a level where we're being taken like guinea pigs. Those are among the things that we should be considered, and that's why you find sometimes, because of private interests, because of the interests of the leaders, they totally compromise the interests, the national interests, and champion their own interests. So these are among the things that as Kenyans we should stand up and say no, this should not be done. So that we even make a statement out of that. Yeah.
So how do some of these things play out then? In the law, where seemingly, where there is adjudication of cases, there are pronouncements that are made, and then they're not followed.
Yes.
And one of the big issues that we look at is the Auditor General, who is constantly giving reports about how money is missing, where it has gone, whether it has been mismanaged or misappropriated. But there's very little action that's taken at the end of the day in terms of what to be done. We read an example this morning whereby e-citizen funds to the tune of 6.7 billion shillings, there's still a question mark about. But that has not happened because of, interestingly enough, akin to your advisory about the 2/3 gender rule, there has been no quorum to discuss the issue about where this money went. Same thing with Kenya's debt. Kenya doesn't have a problem with resources. Kenya has a problem with how it spends it. The country's debt, many argue that it's odious, but that's the problem, whereby you cannot fund so many activities that government needs to, because most of it is going towards debt repayment. How should this be handled?
It is. All these things come revolving around compliance with our law, compliance with the Constitution. Article 211 provides clear provisions for borrowing by the national government. First of all, it allows Parliament to enact legislation to implement or to be able to borrow, to regulate the borrowing. And Parliament has given legislation under the Public Finance Management Act, allowing the CS Treasury to borrow. What you don't see is, the lending institutions are keen. They say, look, tell us the purpose of what, of this borrowing. And in most cases, from the what I have read, the CS gives the purpose. What is not followed, or what is not taken seriously, is the purpose. And the moment you don't comply with that provision, because the borrowing is meant for development. Section 15 of the Public Finance Management Act forbids borrowing for recurrent expenditure. Borrowing is meant for development. So because we are not serious, Parliament is not serious. It is like it has abdicated its responsibility to the Cabinet Secretary. It has, in short, abdicated its responsibility to the Executive. The Executive can say, look, we want to borrow to construct roads. And the Parliament approves. If Parliament doesn't follow up and find out whether the money has actually been used for the purpose it was borrowed, the Executive can use it to hire luxury jets to fly the president around the globe. I mean, is that how we wanted to operate as a country? Now, public debt, as reason, it is heading to 13 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
As we stand in the 2026-2027 budget, it is going to take more than 2.3 trillion out of the 4 trillion of the budget. About 48% of the national budget is going to service debt.
Mm-hmm.
This is debt that most of it is odious. And I commend the Honorable Omtata. He has taken the matter to court. We want to see how the court determines that matter.
Odious in what sense, CJ?
Odious.
When you're asking, at this 2.8 trillion, you're saying quite a lot of it is odious debt. Meaning what? That you can't see requisite development projects or what?
It is not utilized for the purpose it was borrowed.
Mm-hmm.
When borrowed funds are not used for the purpose they are borrowed, it becomes an odious debt. It is not benefiting the public.
Mm-hmm.
There was a case in Mozambique. The Mozambique court, Mozambicans took a matter to court, and they got an order ordering the Swiss banks, which had lent the money, which didn't go to the public, to refund the money that the repayment had been done. International lenders are obligated to ensure that the money is used for the purpose it was borrowed, so that the public are protected. So it is all coming around to the enforcement of the law. It's all coming around to the enforcement of the law. If you don't enforce the law, the executive will borrow and use the money as they want. The executive will trample upon people's rights, and it is, it's total impunity. The culture of impunity cannot be contained.
And you see, CJ, when you talk about odious debt and 48% of our overall budget being used to repay debt, there has to be a connection on what that means to Mwananchi.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, what you're being told is, even the leadership of the country says that we have to tighten our belts. But Kenyans are tightening their belts. They're being overtaxed, But we are not seeing the tightening of the belt when it comes to the executive and how that money is spent. We live in the same country where everybody else is tightening belts, but we are spending 8 million shillings every day to just move around the country. We are seeing the president spending close to 500 million in a trip because he's chartered a private jet. And when you pause and look at it critically, it is because there is what the law says, what must be done, and that is not being done.
Mm-hmm.
Is Parliament the weakest link in upholding the law and ensuring that on matters, especially when it comes to economy and how public funds are spent, that they do not sit down and do their job?
You have said it. Parliament is actually the weakest link. It's like when the parliamentarians get elected, all they think about is their welfare and not the welfare of their constituencies. Because if they were taking their roles seriously, they should be the first ones. Members of parliament should be the first ones to shout the loudest when the constitution is being violated. But we are seeing, in fact, if anything, they are coming with all manner of arguments to water down the provisions of the Constitution, which is extremely unfortunate. Extremely unfortunate. And that's where I'm also getting extremely concerned about the interpretations coming from our courts. The court should understand that they are the last line of defense in this country.
CJ, how would you rate how we've handled the education crisis that the country finds itself in today? Because we see students are speaking, we see schools going up in flames, but we've had a principal secretary who has been chest thumping and not addressing the issues. Given a chance, how would you want these addressed?
Yes. Just let me finish what I was saying about the interpretation of the law by our courts. As I said, the courts must understand that they are the last line of defense for the Kenyans, and be firm in their decisions. Make sure that the law is followed. When the law is not followed, you have the Haiti kind of situation. We don't want to go there. We don't want to go there. And what my appeal is that they let our judges and magistrates stand up courageously and say no to the violation of the Constitution, to the violation of the law. Coming to education, all these things are revolving around the governance of the country. The fires we are seeing in schools, the unrest we are seeing in schools, has serious effects, ripple effects. Children are not being educated as they should. They are missing classes. They are missing, the instructions in class because the schools are being closed. What has brought all this? You can't blame one institution, in my view. Of course, there are others which take much more blame than some. The unrest in school as literally all of us involved. It starts with parenting. And I have argued this in other fora, that as a parent, if you don't train your child the basic things in life when that child is young, he's going to be riotous. Even the Bible says, train a child in the way he should go, and that child will follow. When a child is not trained to respect authority, authority starts with the mother, what the mother is saying, and goes on. So that is inculcated in the life of the child. Yes. That child is going to be to create problems later. Now, the parents have a role to play. The teachers have a role to play. Society as a whole has a role to play. But the greatest responsibility comes when it comes to schools. The greatest responsibility is now cast on the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education, in this case, in my view, especially the fires that we are seeing, the Ministry of Education is supposed to bring all the stakeholders together. The parents, the children themselves, they should be heard why they are setting the schools on fire, and the matter discussed. In other words, don't treat the symptoms. Go to the cause of the problem and deal with it. Now, the ministry, instead of doing that, it is glossing over such a very serious issues. We have had these fires, we have had deaths. It started, was it Bombolulu? Yes. Bombolulu, we had Changuli, we had Nairobi girls. The last one was Utumishi. Children have died. Kenyans have died. Kenyan children have died. What is more serious than that? Now, as I said, all this is coming up, and the talk we are hearing is that even the teachers themselves are aggrieved. Some are being transferred, willy-nilly. Promotions are being given to others, and the others are left out. So it's a whole problem that capitation, as you said, is not being sent to the schools. How are the schools supposed to manage? How does a principal feed children if he does not have money? So all these are the problems that the ministry knows And the ministry should get all these actors together, play its part, bring all these stakeholders together and deal with that problem once and for all. But because, as I said, we are not bothered about some of the what happens, and we are not shouting loud enough, in my view, we are going to continue having children dying. We are continuing to have children setting fire and killing their fellow students.
Because we're not addressing the issue.
Because we are not addressing the issues. There is drug abuse going to even schools. I mean, my friend, if we don't contain these acts, we are all in this boat and we are going to suffer and suffer very badly.
A last question for you, CJ, that what do you think would be difficult or easy in a presidency with the things that you see that are currently going on in Kenya that need fixing or that need to maintain the status quo? What would be difficult? What would be easy if you were in the driver's seat?
Thank you very much for asking that question. As you know, my sister, I've not been a politician. I've come to this space because of a dire need to set the country on the right track. We have derailed. I want to reset the country on its constitution and the rule of law, so that we can deal with this. Most of what is happening is because of indecisive kind of situation, lack of political will, right from the top. As president, if you are firm and say, look, this can't happen, the law must be followed. Your officers who are not following the law, you take action against them. You will have order. Let me tell you, Kenya is one of the countries where the citizens are law-abiding. You just need to be firm. You remember what the late Michuki did? Yes. He said, wear safety belts. And it was very firm. I mean, it was followed. It was followed. When Kibaki came to power, immediately he came to power, some citizens were arresting police officers who were taking bribes on the road. And for a short while, there was order. What does that tell you? If you are firm on what should be done as head of state and say, no, this one is not going to be done, take action. If there is an officer under you who is not complying with the law, take action against him, and there will be order. If you look at what is happening in the country, in my view, something like corruption is, in my view, an existential threat to the security and survival of this country. If firm action is not taken to deal with corruption in this country will break. I can assure you it is going to break. We have unemployment, which is, more than 67% of the young people are unemployed. And remember, the young people comprise more than 75% of the population. You're not going to tell somebody who is sleeping hungry to comply with the law, and you are eating and throwing surpluses to the dustbins. They are not going to take that.
Indeed.
So unless we are serious about that, this country is going to break. Let me tell you, you can't see opulence from people. You know, some of you, your classmates, they are here. You are struggling here. You are paying your mortgages, but here are your colleagues, who are traveling by choppers, and they are telling you, look, this is from my own money. And I mean, you ask yourself, some of us are so stupid that we don't know how to make that money so that we can also be comfortable.
Indeed.
And you know clearly that this is all looting of public resources.
Your message is clear this morning, and it's clear what you want to do, but it's also clear where your head is. CJ Emeritus David Maraga has been our guest this hour. We look forward to the next conversation, and thank you for being in the Situation Room this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. As I said, let all, as Kenyans, let us all say no to impunity. Let us all say no to corruption. Otherwise, unless we do that, we will not have a country.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Obaga. Controversial or embattled ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna will determine or will know his fate in the case of his dismissal from the post on Thursday next week. The political party's disputes tribunal has set June 18th as the date on which it will rule on the appeal filed by Sifuna challenging the disciplinary process taken against him by the ODM party. While presenting his arguments before the tribunal, Advocate Isaac Okoh, who represented Sifuna, claimed that the ODM executive committee violated the party constitution when it made its decision on February 11th this year to remove him from the post of Secretary General. However, ODM lawyers have urged the tribunal to dismiss Sifuna's complaint, insisting that there are still internal mechanisms within the party to resolve the dispute. Lawyer Ken Amonde made it clear that what is currently happening is a disciplinary process within the party and that the complainant should follow the party's procedures and not file his complaint as the process is still ongoing. In a decision that deepened the conflict between Sifuna and the current ODM leadership, the party's committee announced the removal of Sifuna from the position and instead handed over to Woman Representative Catherine Omanyo. Furthermore, the split in ODM began just days after its leader, Raila Odinga, passed away, and since then the party has been experiencing major turmoil, especially after Oburu Oginga announced his leadership. Internal tensions and a cold war within the party led to the party splitting into two factions, Linda Monanchi led by Sifuna as well as Linda Ground led by Oburu. The government is fully prepared to deal with an Ebola outbreak if it is reported in the country. Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has said that sufficient resources have been allocated for preventive measures, including monitoring in 23 facilities, establishment of isolation and treatment centers, procurement of essential equipment and training for health workers. According to Kindiki, the government is collaborating with international partners such as the World Health Organization to protect Kenyans from the outbreak of the disease. He warned against any attempt to turn a public health issue into a political debate, stressing that the safety of citizens should be prioritized over political differences.
The government offers maximum support to what you're doing to make sure that you protect our people from this very, very dangerous disease. I want to also assure members of the public that we are taking measures for infection prevention control. We are also taking measures to provide the necessary operational and logistical support. We have set up places for isolation and treatment, 23 of them, and we don't want the politicization and the sensationalism that some of the members of the society are bringing into this very straightforward public health issue.
And finally, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union has strongly condemned the assault of healthcare workers at Gertrude's Children's Hospital in Mungai, describing the incident as a disturbing example of the growing threat of workplace violence in the Kenyan health sector. KMPDU Secretary General Davji Atela said the union had received reports that a pediatric dentist, theatre staff and members of the nursing team were physically assaulted, intimidated and subjected to violence by relatives of a minor patient on June 5th. He termed the actions as grossly unsettling and warned that attacks on healthcare workers undermine the delivery of quality medical services. He also urged the management of Gertrude's Children's Hospital, Maraga branch, to fully cooperate with investigators by providing witness accounts, relevant records and surveillance footage to aid the probe. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state of, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Every time he kept on saying he wants a vibrant opposition.
How does it make sense that public money has been used already and then they dare to sell it back to you? Why are they not giving them for free?
That's how broken we are. That's how broken we are.
They are being sent home now for fees. They're going to fail to prepare. We are compromising the futures of these children.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we may find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A very good morning to you at 12 minutes after 8 o'clock and into the third hour of our conversations this morning. Thank you for being here and continuing these conversations with us. Our live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook and on X, and our audience on KTN continues with us into this conversation. All right, so we are going to look into it. We may think that it's just the ruling, or we think that it's just, another thing that happens coming out of the Kenyan courts. But is it precedent setting in one direction or another? Sometimes we talk about precedent setting and we think that it is only the guide for what we should do. But precedent setting also is a guide for the things that we should not do. Constitutionalism versus options. Gachagwa's case is what we're talking about this morning. Eric Morioki is an advocate and he's with us in the hot seat of the Situation Room. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wakili. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back here.
Welcome to the hot seat. It's been a minute, but we're glad that you were able to join us this morning.
Yes, it's been a minute, but I'm happy to be back.
Thank you so much. The political risk analyst is Dismas Okoh. He insists that we use that demonstrative article, so we're here with it anyway. Good morning, Dismas. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We'll look into some of the things that come out, and the court of public opinion, though it may not hold any stamp in terms of constitutionalism, is very important when it comes to how things are perceived. So we'll bring that aspect into this conversation as well. Before we do that, Dennis this week has taken us to Guinea.
Yes, country that is rich in bauxite. Very important in the construction of processing of aluminum. Americans call it aluminum. The Brits call it aluminium. Depends with which one you choose.
And the Kisi say aluminum.
Aluminum. It is understood.
So I think that is superior.
And it's done with it's done with soprano aluminum. But then again, they're also rich in oil, gold, and diamond. But let's go to the proverb. When a mother has twins, she must sleep on her back. When a mother has twins, she must sleep on her back. Wakili, how would you interpret it? You're in the business of interpretation.
Wow. First time I'm hearing such a saying, but probably it means that if you have a lot of responsibility, you must be watchful. You must be very careful. You must be always alert. You see, when you're on your back, you're ready to spring to action. Regardless of the shortness of the notice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it.
Shortness of the notice. The political analyst, how would you interpret it?
I would analyze that. I would rather interpret it that it actually talks about equity and equality. That if you've got twins and you've got a bread, it must be, and the bread has got 10 slices. Let's move behind 5 slices up and 5 slices up. You can't afford to do 6-4. It has to be 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah.
Well said, well interpreted.
Indeed.
Asante sana.
So everybody's got their knickers in a little bit of a twist, especially the judge, especially the lawyers. And we've seen for the first time maybe this year that lawyers across board have come together and their minds are set that there was something that was a little bit amiss and that perhaps something is stinking in the land of Denmark, whereby they're saying, hold on a minute, by your own admission, you said that a part of the constitution has been abrogated, but rather than fix it, we're going to throw some money at it. Does that really kind of sum it up, Eric?
Actually, it does. And the reason why, like you said, lawyers have got their whatever's in a band is because we start from Article 2, Sub-Article 4 of the Constitution, which declares that any action or omission that is done in contravention with the Constitution is invalid. Then, from there we go to Article 25, which gives us the non-derogable rights. And that article, in its own language, elevates those 4 rights against every other provision in the Constitution. Because it says, despite, let me just read it verbatim, despite any other provision in this Constitution, the following rights and fundamental freedoms shall not be limited. So already Article 25 is putting these 4 rights in a place where they are first among equals, because constitutional provisions should be read together. And one of those rights is the right to fair trial. The right to fair trial is fundamental. It goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. When the all-knowing, all-powerful God came and saw what had happened in the garden, he didn't say, I know.
He didn't say, I can see. He asked,
what did you do?
And why? Explain yourself.
Yeah.
And that's when Adam said it's a woman. The woman said it's a snake. All that. That tells you that this right is not capable of being separated from our existence.
So you have a right to then explain the why. You should be given the right to say, this is what happened on your own account.
Yes, and that's where now I'm bringing it home.
Okay.
With regard to the Gachagua case.
All right.
You say on one hand that this person was not given this right that we have seen. It's so fundamental. They were not heard. Then you say that regardless, the result of that procedure stands. That is a problem. The right is non-derogable.
And if you say non-derogable in English, what does that mean?
Okay. Non-derogable means the Constitution itself has said this right cannot be limited under any circumstances. Whether the heavens fall, whether there is earthquakes and sulfur and brimfire, this right cannot be abrogated. And that is why there is a problem with that judgment, because the moment you found that fair hearing rights have been violated, then you do not have any options to negotiate in that judgment. What you need to do is set that thing aside. And the reason is because if this person had been given their fair hearing rights, perhaps the decision maker could have changed their mind. That is one of the reasons, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, sorry. So there's something that may have happened or may have been said and or presented in a certain manner that may have swayed the presiding entity, in this case the Senate, that would have changed the outcome of those proceedings. So in the event that you denied this person that opportunity, then you've kind of nailed the coffin, essentially.
Exactly.
Right.
That is exactly right.
Okay.
That is exactly right.
Okay.
The political risk analyst.
Yes.
In all this that we see now, the law is very clear for everyone to read and understand, right? But then again, the decisions that have been made by the court. What political implications does this then have to the political players that we see today as we approach 2027?
Well, Eric has captured
especially to regard the Gachagua.
Yes, Eric has captured the legal perspective very well, and we saw what was happening at the National Assembly and Senate. So whether you talk about fair trial, and some lawyers are saying that in fact that was not a criminal process. So when you talk about fair trial, it may not be neither here nor there. When one saw the members of the National Assembly and Senate, they had taken a conclusion. Right from the word go, they knew how they were going to vote. And I think they were just going through the process that you need to tick the first box, yes. Public participation, yes. Already they had taken a decision. Even if you had given Rigiji another 6 months or 1 year, I think they would have arrived at the same decision. And there's a highly regarded lady who was in this studio, who sat probably one of these seats, the Chief Justice, who said that an impeachment is an impeachment till it has been lifted by a court. And because it has not been lifted by a court, then it means probability of Mr. Rigathi Gachagua running for political office is almost zero. And lawyers have spoken about it many times. But at the spirit, although some lawyers again say there's no spirit, but the spirit of Chapter 6 and Article 10 is that it's supposed to be black or white, that you've been impeached or you have not been impeached. So that is why some of the conversations we saw yesterday can be described as fraudulent political posturing. When somebody who has been impeached insists that is going to run for a political office, yet lawyers would say, again, there are many opinions, as there are many, as there are grains of sand up in the ocean, as to whether or not he can actually run. But it would be very good if the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court can actually pronounce itself with finality. And if that happens, then people will have a very good understanding on his political future. But looking at it from a political perspective, probability of him running for office, at least next year, is almost zero. So, from the guys in the United Opposition, if they're looking for a candidate, there are only two viable alternatives, Dr. Kalonzo Musyoka and Dr. Fred Matiang'i. So if people are going to a room to come up with a method of selecting somebody from the United Opposition,
you're basically saying don't use Gachagua as an option.
Well, Gachagua is going to be, or is going to position himself as a kingmaker, and you have to give him the young people normally say flowers.
Flowers, yeah.
You have to give him a pat on the back that he has managed through various tricks, misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, to beat up everybody in Mount Kenya. That if you go against the grain, immediately says, wait a minute, Nduh, you've become a traitor. You are not aligned with community interest. Because Mount Kenya has got somebody like J.B. Muturi, has got Munya, has got Mwangi Kiunjuri, people who can come up. In fact, the only person right now in Mount Kenya who can take Mr. Rigathi Gachagua head-on is former President Kenyatta. And you remember when...
but to do what?
When Mr. Rigathi Gachagua was deputy president and there were demonstrations, you recall he's the person who used to go to the office early in the morning and give Kenyans warning. And then there's the little matter over the theft of assets belonging to President Kenyatta. Now you're asking what? Anybody who has served as a president wants to maintain strong political capital so that you don't...
Some people.
Yeah, most of them. So that you don't interfere with their... after they leave office. But here in Kenya, as it is for President Kenyatta, it matters not who is going to be president after next year, because his political interests, commercial interests, and economic interests are well secured. In fact, out of everybody in the political class, I think the person who sleeps easy is President Kenyatta. Yeah. He doesn't care who becomes president, because for him, the worst which would have happened was President Ruto, President Matiang'i,
Oh, careful.
Okay. I meant to say presidential candidate Matiang'i or presidential candidate Kalonzo. I mean, Kenyatta is in Jubilee, so his preferred presidential candidate from Jubilee is Matiang'i. And then he's the head of Azimio. His candidate is Kalonzo Musyoka. So whichever way the opposition decides to dance is at home.
Okay. I want to understand something, because indeed when the Chief Justice sat in that seat, she said that these things are final. But then the law, which everybody says is so clear, but in some instances, Eric, it's as clear as mud.
I disagree with you, because
in some instances, it's clear as mud. Because first you say the thing is final, but then on the other hand, you say until all avenues of appeal have been exhausted.
Yes.
So which is it? Because you can say that the final nail in the coffin has been delivered, but then you also have the auspices of the appellate court, who can then sit on a matter and actually be in a position to lift the thing. So is the what?
So when the Chief Justice sat here and spoke, she was expressing her opinion on what should happen when an impeachment has been confirmed by the Senate.
She also spoke in reference to a sentence, even when a court case has been expended and the sentence has been given. That was actually what she referred to. When a sentence has been given, she says it is final, you go start serving your sentence. But people have appealed on, people have even gone back and been elected as members of parliament after having been sentenced by a court.
Exactly. So she drew similarities between the sentence situation and the impeachment situation. What we have right now, the situation that we have right now came about in 2017 from the Karungo Thangwa case.
Yeah.
There's a senator from Kiambu called Karungo Thangwa, used to be a CEC member. He was impeached. He wanted to vie for Senate.
Yes.
IEBC refused to clear him. He went to court. He went to the High Court, said that he has the right to vie as long as he has not exhausted the mechanisms of appeal. That is in accordance to Article 99(3) and Article 193 as well. So when the High Court pronounced itself and said that indeed you have not exhausted your mechanisms of appeal and so you can vie, we got stuck with that. When the Chief Justice sat here several years later, she was giving her opinion on what should be, how things should be, not how they are right now.
So it's not the law?
Right now, the law is you can vie. As long as you have a pending appeal, you can go and contest, because
so
that is what the High Court said.
That a conviction and a sentence is final?
That is not what we have right now. Yeah. That is what we should have. And let me just explain
please.
Very shortly. The Chief Justice was saying that an impeachment is basically a disqualifier. You don't fit the character of a leader that we want to have, according to Chapter 6 of the Constitution, leadership and integrity. And because you've been found to have violated this law or to have lacked integrity in this other way, you stand aside until you can clear yourself from that is where we should that is where we should go. That is the direction we should be headed towards. But where we are right now, an impeached person, even Rigiji, can still contest as long as the appeal is pending. Now, luckily, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, are going to have an opportunity finally to pronounce themselves on this issue, because there are two very important impeachments that have happened that will find themselves there. That is the Kawira Mwangaza impeachment from Meru, which I was part of, and this Rigiji impeachment, which I was also part of at the Senate, but not at the court level. So the courts will have an opportunity to finally settle this law, so that someone who has been impeached, your character is questionable, your integrity is not, is not there. You should not vie until that impeachment is overturned by a court. And specifically, even when impeachments are overturned by courts, they are overturned on the issue of process, not on the issue of substance. That is a good reason why someone who has been impeached should not be allowed anywhere near the ballot. But we have not gotten there. We are going there. Yes.
That means, Wakili, as we speak today, regarding Gachagua and everything he's doing he's doing it rightfully so, because then the law allows him to pretty much run for president of the republic, to occupy any office in the land, because he's not exhausted all the appeal mechanisms.
Yes, right now, yes, as we speak, that is what it means. He can vie. Whether he can win, that's a different story. But legally speaking, he is allowed to vie, because the final courts have not pronounced themselves on this issue. They have not said that impeachment is a bit different from the other things that you could be accused of.
But he must activate this process by bringing it before the appellate court, isn't it? He must file an appeal to this judgment that was given on Monday, because he cannot just sit and say, okay, well, I can go. He must bring it. And that is how you now activate it being under appeal, isn't it?
Exactly. Okay. And in fact, you've identified another very cogent reason why the law is moving towards this side that the Chief Justice spoke about, as opposed to the Karungo Thangwa situation. It's because if I know I was impeached, and I was impeached validly, all the people voted, all the senators said that I should go home, and I want to contest for a political office, what do? I take this case to court, and I park it there for years and years. I just, whenever it comes up for hearing, I have another application. I want this judge to go, or I want this other person to do that. So that provision, that Karungo Thangwa situation that the High Court left us with in 2022, gives people the perverse incentive to park matters in courts, so that you can be allowed to vie because you have a pending appeal. But yes, he must activate that protection, quote unquote, by filing an appeal.
Okay.
So the impeachment process is more of a political process and a legal process at the same time. Now, when you talk about this process taking place in the National Assembly and the Senate, and now the judges having a problem with the process at the Senate, What does this then inform to the holders of those offices in terms of adhering to the rules of the game and ensuring that the entire process is actually followed?
Well, in my view, the Senate was faulted for not going through the entire process. But in my view, that is merely a technicality. Because whichever way you look at it, whether they would have ticked every box with a red pen, with a black one, with a green one, the outcome would have still been the same. Because these members of the National Assembly and Senate say they were mobilized, that they were given capacity and they were given reasons to go and vote in a particular way. And all they were doing was actually press-ups, just waiting for the time to come and vote. I mean, when you are paying attention to them, some of them were actually almost sleeping, others were yawning. They were just waiting to cast their ballots. And because it's a political process, it was a political decision. They were merely going through ticking boxes, going through the motions. And as Wakil has indicated, these impeachments, if you look at it maybe from a commercial perspective, it's like you've been declared bankrupt. You cannot trade, you cannot do many things. So, essentially, Mr. Rigiji has been declared politically bankrupt. There's nothing else he can do. If I were him, I will go back and strengthen my position as a kingmaker so that I can influence the political space from Kenya.
But that as well speaks to the fact that the political process that took place, it's not because individuals sat down to interrogate the matter that was before them. It's simply because they were given an order from another office, from another person to go through with the process. That therefore means that Rigiji went through a process that was initiated by somebody else, and those who were charged to try him to go through the process did not really care what was before him.
I'm not sure what Eric would say, but my understanding is, basic understanding of impeachment is actually a vote of confidence or no confidence in a politician. I mean, you've seen the way governors have been taken around small circles. So even for Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, despite his brand of toxic politics that every Kenyan knows and accepts, selling shares, selling shares. I mean, you see from my part of Kenya, wherever Mr. Rigathi Gachagua speaks, I ask myself, was he actually my deputy president? And does he speak for my interest? Wherever issues are being discussed that do not affect the mountain, he's very quiet. But if the issues are elsewhere, especially around equity and equality, it starts to raise eyebrows. So, and I think we've got an ethical responsibility to point out these issues, especially if you want to put together a cohesive nation called Kenya.
What are the issues, Dismas?
The issues are that every Kenyan, and Eric is going to point out where it's captured in the Constitution, we deserve to be treated in a manner that reflects equity and equality. And we must go the extra mile to reverse what was created by sessional paper number 10, where some places in Kenya were declared productive and others were declared non-productive.
Okay, so one of the issues that you're talking about is that Kenya must foster a position of equity and equality.
Yeah, and all leaders must subscribe to that philosophy of equity and equality. When you depart from that philosophy of equity and equality, in my view, that should be a reason for impeachment. Because, and I keep on asking this, and I'm going to ask this till the cows come home, and this is a question I'm going to pose to Eric. I'll ask you to name for me the 3 top public hospitals and their location. Then after that, you name the 3 top schools for boys and their location, and the 3 top girls' school and their location. If you really want to understand that there is no equity and equality for a long time in Kenya in distribution of national resources.
Is this one of those things where you're asking a question and you know the answer? Because you might as well tell us where those are so that we can move the conversation along.
Okay, let's start with the hospitals. Let's start with the hospitals.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're talking about the top 3 public hospitals in Kenya, you'll talk about KNH, you'll talk about Kenyatta University Teaching Research. It's got a very long name. And you'll talk about MTRH in Eldoret. If you're talking about the top boys' schools, you'll talk about Alliance, and then you'll talk about Mangu, and you may talk about Lenana. If you're talking about girls, again, you may talk about Alliance, then you may... So, you can see because of that session of paper number 10, there's no national school in my village. So what happens? Before we got this new road, I speak as a Kisii man, before we got the new road, Narok, if you're to bring a patient from Kisii to KNH, it will take you 10 hours. Halfway the trip, the patient will be long dead. That is why we must subscribe to equity and equality in distribution of national resources. And any leader, it doesn't matter whether you're in UDA, whether you're in DCP, whether you don't have a political party, you must respect that. You see, a few days ago, when people went to Wajir for National Day celebrations, guys were asking, wait a minute, do they have sufficient water for you to take a National Day celebration in that part of the world? A few days ago, when they went to Kisii, people were complaining, what the hell, why are you taking this thing to Kisii? But if you go to Kisii, when President Kenyatta had a National Day celebration, people saw roads being done, there was power, there's everything else. So let's distribute this our cake in a manner that reflects equity, equality, and run away from fraudulent political posturing.
Is there anybody that cannot be accused of political posturing today that's fraudulent in nature? Anybody?
That's what I'm saying, that we must run away, and I've said that it's our ethical responsibility. When you've got this unique opportunity that we have been given by Kenyans, we must discuss this till the cows come home, till we start irritating those politicians who think otherwise.
I mean, Wakili, I want to look at the system, right? I want to look at the system in terms of how that then forms the future of a country that we want to be in.
Yes.
Rigathi Gachagua went through a process that the court itself has admitted was unlawful. It is not us. It is the court that has admitted that process was unlawful. And you read that together with the fact that in 2017, the elections were nullified because of the process did not meet the threshold that was required. Now, if we're talking about any impeachment that is to follow, if members of parliament both at the Senate and the National Assembly are given an impeachment motion and they do not care the substance of that motion and proceed to vote for an individual to leave without really understanding the nitty-gritties of that, what exactly are we doing to the rule of law, the Constitution, and ensuring that we live in a country where the Constitution is sacrosanct, is respected by all and sundry?
Thank you, Dennis. And let me take it slightly back to where Mokua had started. Impeachment is a very interesting concept. It is, let me just loosely say that it is political in substance, but legal in process.
Yes.
And that is just lightly saying it because, of course, there are legal issues even in substance and all that. But the court held correctly that it can only do a process review, not a merit review. The reason why you have those safeguards of supermajority twice is to ensure that that power to impeach is not abused.
And also the threshold.
But that is the supermajority threshold. That is the 2/3. But then again, if we are saying, if the court tells us that we can only intervene to audit the process and check that the process was complied with, and they do that audit and find that there was an issue with the process, but then they don't, do anything meaningful about it, the message that sends is that, you can do whatever you want to accomplish, and then even breach rights in the process, we will find a way to justify it. The more correct course of action, in my opinion, would have been for the court to invalidate this entire thing. And we have a saying, I won't say it in Latin, I'll just say it in English, let justice be done, though the heavens may fall. Because if we continue to make these allowances, these small allowances for the Constitution to be violated, very soon we are going to end up in a position where nobody cares, nobody respects the Constitution, everybody does whatever they want because they know they can. They can. At least right now, there are some things that that cannot be done. Okay. But we are starting on a very slippery slope. And the man who sat here before us, former Chief Justice Maraga, he actually did something when it was his tenure. He nullified a presidential election, which was the first time it had happened in the whole of Africa. Yeah. And on top of that, he advised the president to dissolve parliament. Those are the kinds of judicially courageous actions that are needed to protect the Constitution, to ensure that, because what essentially the court said is you can violate someone's rights in a process important as this, and then pay him, pay this person. That is fundamentally flawed. It is so wrong, because this person has to live with the consequences of impeachment. If the two other courts do not overturn this person will have to live with the consequences of impeachment, which means he can never hold public office. Yet the process that got him there, somehow violated his rights. And I do understand that, of course, we don't live in a vacuum, because the other side of the argument, is also worth looking at. The courts were saying, this guy was impeached, fine, his rights were violated, but some things have been done from that moment in time up to now, which are not easy to undo. Quashing that impeachment would have meant automatically, whether Rigathi Gachagua asked for it in his pleadings or not, would have meant that we go to the status that was there before he was impeached, and that is him being the deputy president and Professor Kindiki being out of office.
But Okili, where the law exists and the law is clear, an abrogation of the law existed, that means where we sit today, the hold of that office is there illegally. If I am to interpret that ruling as Aseto, because the process did not follow the law. Therefore, whoever holds that office today is as a result of an illegality that happened.
And that is why the court found itself doing some gymnastics. It had to do this gymnastics, because how else would it justify saying that there was a flaw in the process, this person was not heard, but we are not. So they had to do this kind of gymnastics to try and balance things to ensure. And of course, judgments that come over political matters like these ones, they will never make people happy. Rarely. They will not make, at least some factions will be very, very unhappy with them. But you also have to understand those judges. And I'm not saying that they did the right thing. I'm just trying to try and understand what might have been the thinking, what might have been the philosophy. And the philosophy was consequences. If we undo this process of this person who was already appointed into the office and return this other one, what kind of anarchy will we throw the country into? Realistically speaking, if Rigathi Gachagua was reinstated as a deputy president through court, how would he work with Ruto? After 2 years of trading insults, barbs, all those things, how would they work? Because a president and a deputy are actually supposed to work, sort of like in a marriage, supposed to work complementing each other, holding each other's fort when one is not there.
So this is interesting. I guess you could also weigh in here as well. Because the court's decision to say is final, except when you have like the appellate court and then the Supreme Court, which is the apex court after that. So would it have been so painful for them to just give a ruling and say that with all the evidence found, etc., we have decided to uphold the impeachment? Because what you've done by then saying that you have found this discrepancy here and there is that you have opened the door for all the vermin to fly into the house. You have basically said that, yes, we realize and we understand that something else could have been done, but we're going to throw some 50 million shillings at it to get you to keep quiet in that corner. While we understand that judicial officers have a duty of care to take into consideration the political atmosphere and to take into consideration the everything that could possibly happen, I'm not a judge or a lawyer, but it just seemed like a rookie move to then tell people that you see the mistake that has been made, but you're not going to do anything about it. It doesn't matter who it was. It could have been Rigathi Gachagua, it could have been your pet dog. It doesn't matter that you pronounced yourself having seen a mistake, but that you're going to throw money at it. Now, what it does, if we look politically, is that it kind of buffers what is in the public arena, that you can throw money at something to solve an issue when we don't want to address the matter at hand, beyond Rigathi Gachagua, other things. Do you see that seeping into the politics of the day?
Yeah, you know, Mr. Rigathi Gachagua and his lawyer said that it's not about the money, 50 million bob. Then I rolled my eyes. I said, it's not about the money. However, one of the things that he had wanted is to find out whether they can be treated as a retired deputy president. You know, so that he falls in the category of Chief Justice Maraga, the speakers, and you know the benefits that accrue to that. So, of course,
I don't know. I think they were bragging rights for him.
Yeah, of course, it's about money.
Nowhere he wouldn't be able to step in the country if, for example, you say that the impeachment has been overturned. My God, there's feathers in a peacock's bush.
And the kind of things he was asking for include access to the VIP lounge.
And I think what the ICO did is, I mean, you know, during Sunday school, we were told about something called purgatory. I think they placed him in a political purgatory so that he doesn't know whether he's moving left, whether he's moving right, and maybe they're assisting him to manage expectations so that he can go to the Court of Appeal and eventually go to the Supreme Court. But in my view, I don't know why Kenyans are very keen on what Dent has been saying, that the law is very clear. There's a senior attorney general, one of your seniors, who said that the law is never clear, because if it was clear, then we will not need lawyers and judges and magistrates. So it's important for Mr. Rigathi Gachagua and his lawyers. I hope they are filed so that we can get something coming from the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court, so that then people respect this thing called impeachment. While lawyers and the judiciary will review the process, majority of politicians will be interested in content, because there are so many impeachment motions we've seen at the Senate, and on the face of it, you know, these gentlemen are stolen Mura's chicken. These gentlemen are stolen Alima's chicken. But you know, those senators vote in a particular way, or on account of a technicality, somebody is set away free. So in my view, we must, and again, what the Court of Appeal, the High Court indicated, let them come up with that legal framework. I don't know whether it's an act of parliament, so that these impeachments can actually serve Mura's interest. Because impeachment was never meant to be a trial, a criminal trial.
Plus, I don't think that this particular impeachment had anything to do with the Kenyan people.
Yep.
This particular one.
Well, you know, we are told that it was an account of being shareholders. It's an account of asking people from your village to come and kiss your ring. You know, we were given many reasons.
Let's give it a name: divorce proceeding.
Yeah, okay. And you know, nobody wants to see how this sausage is being manufactured. People wanted to see the outcome, the results. So, if for some reason Eric and I come from the same village and we decide to run for governor, and he's my running mate, but upon assuming office, he starts threatening my position as the governor for my county, I should find it in my interest to kick him out. He needs to remain loyal for 10 years. Or when I find him, ameanza kunichimba kule kwa ofisi, having nocturnal meetings with my CECs, chief officers, I will kick him out. So let's make it very easy to have all these things taking place. However, as I've said times above number, and I may be stepping on somebody's toes, any leader in Kenya who doesn't respect equity and equality should be a candidate for impeachment, because you've been elected to preside
you just
over.
ruled out a greater percentage of the leaders.
You've been elected to preside over allocation of national resources. Why should somebody in Mosocho suffer on account of a leader who wants a lion's share of the taxpayers' resources to go to his village and not Mosocho? You know, those are candidates for impeachments. And as I keep on repeating, if we do not place a huge premium on meritocracy, character, competence, and capacity, these lawyers like Eric will have a lot of work around these impeachment motions, because you said he participated in a number of impeachments, so he'll be having a lot of work. Let's have a very clear legal framework so that every Kenyan, whether you are born here or not, you feel that leaders respect you.
Eric, is it that we don't have a legal framework, or the legal framework that currently does exist has been reduced to be just another piece of paper, just another phrase that does exist? Because when you talk about impeachment, there are things that you must fulfill, whether it is for a governor. There are things that must go through for that to qualify to be an impeachment. So is it absence of legal framework, or implementation of this framework as envisaged by the Constitution?
Thank you, Dennis. And impeachment at its core is always going to be a political issue.
Yes.
The process of getting there is what the law is here to look at. And currently the framework that we have, I mean, it's sufficient. It has gotten a few governors out of office, a whole deputy president. Of course, the impeachment is subject to. But of course, there are some problems. There are some rough surfaces that need to be sanded down. For example, the Senate, if you had the opinion of Justice Murima, the Senate conflated the two avenues of impeachment. It gives itself an avenue that it calls plenary, which does not exist in the Constitution. Because, like Justice Murima said, once it has looked at that motion and decided to admit it, then it must form a committee. So we need laws, a framework to make certain things clearer, but that does not mean that that lack of framework, has affected things in any way right now as it is. Impeachment at its core is political, and that is why someone is impeached by a group, a majority of their peers. When you look at the qualifications to become president, they are the same as the qualification to become deputy president. And they are the same as the qualification to become a member of parliament. So basically impeachment is your political peers, telling you that you have behaved in a manner that is so wayward that we cannot continue living with you. We have to get rid of you. That is why governors are impeached by MCAs. What are the qualifications for election of a governor? Same as the qualifications for MCA, of course, apart from the degree issue because of resources and all that.
Yeah.
Yes.
What dangers lie in then being in these impeachments then being weaponized? And I believe that it was your co-counsel Elisha Ngoya who talked about this, especially during the case of Kawira Mwangaza, whereby it was that this is going to be weaponized politically to throw at somebody that may do something that doesn't benefit me. You see now, it's not about representation of the people anymore, but it's people coalescing around an idea where we're not getting a piece of the pie. So how about we use this thing that is lawful called impeachment to teach you a lesson? How do you run away from the danger of weaponizing this impeachment, which is a lawful procedure to remove somebody who is not abiding by the things you mentioned?
Yes. So one of the ways to prevent that from happening is by having a very strict judiciary that audits the process and ensures that every single step is followed, and makes it very, very, very expensive to not follow any step in the process or to miss any step in the process. That is what at least the Constitution promises. But as to the merits of this impeachment, whether this person actually did something that is objectively wrong or not, that is always going to be a political question. Even in countries like the US, which are more than 300 years old as democracies, impeachment is still profoundly political. President Trump has been impeached, I think, twice.
Times above
by the House of Representatives.
Bill Clinton,
yes,
Monica Lewinsky.
Several people. But the safeguards that we should have are on the process. In this play called A Man for All Seasons, someone asks Sir Thomas More, whether he would give the devil the benefit of the law. And he says, yes, I would. For my own sake, when the devil turns around and starts coming after me, I want to have those safeguards there. And that is precisely the problem with this judgment. Like Nduh said, had the justices found that there was no violation, we wouldn't be having everybody having their whatever's in a bunch, like you said at the start. But once you found that there was a violation, but then you don't cure that violation in the way that you're supposed to, making the process expensive even means telling the Senate, you did this wrong, you didn't hear this man, go back and rehear this impeachment issue. Okay, it means even fining individual senators who refuse to vote to allow the adjournment, and it means of course giving damages that are way more than 50 million to send a message that yes, we know it's a political process, we know you can come up with whatever reasons to justify it when you need to, but follow the rules, follow the steps.
You could find that the result would be the same, but the difference here is that you gave the opportunity for this individual to be heard. They gave their side of the story, essentially. And it's on the same precedent that we saw the nullification of a presidential election, whereby the court did not say that the result was wrong, but that the channel through which the transmission occurred had a problem.
Yes.
Now let us fix the channel and let's do it again. We're not arguing about the result, but we are saying that according to the Constitution, the channel that you use must be above reproach. Now, are we likening the same here and saying they could have still decided to impeach? They could have still said the impeachment would still go through if you go back. However, let us follow the tenets of the Constitution whereby it says you must be heard.
Yeah, thank you. You have actually summarized it very well.
Should be a lawyer.
Because illegalities and irregularities must be removed from the process. And I'd like to buttress what Erica said. This fine of 50 million, Bob, is going to be paid by Maraga, not by those senators. So maybe regarding lawyers should go to court and insist that this 50 million, Bob, comes from their individual salaries.
Oh, they don't want 50 million.
Some sort of a check-off. Because, I mean, he's raised a very fundamental point. Public servants of rank will keep on making mistakes, knowing that when there's a pecuniary penalty, it's still the taxpayer resources. Because this 50 million, Bob, if the clerk of the Senate decides to pay, it's not his money. It's money which is going to be allocated from a budget. It should come from their pocket.
Oh, by the way, even if he appeals, they're still going to give him this 50 million.
So the appellate court, of course, has the opportunity to overturn the entire judgment. They can decide to maintain it. They can enhance some of the whatever. So when he appeals, we don't know what might come out of it. The Court of Appeal might, surprise us and do
reduce it to 500,000.
and even say that no money damages should be awarded. But the Court of Appeal, of course, will look in a limited way at the facts, but mostly it will be looking at the application of the law. And at the Court of Appeal, the issue that will take center stage, I'm not a prophet, but I can try and predict, is this issue of fair hearing. One side will be arguing, you found that we were not heard fairly. Why then would our court continue to uphold that result? And like you summarized when we were just awarding you the law degree here, we should also juxtapose that with the 2013 presidential petition, place it alongside the 2017 one, and this impeachment process. Because it seems like we've come from here, we've risen a bit, and then we've gone back. In 2013, the court said that there were irregularities and illegalities, but they did not affect the election, so we uphold the election. In 2017, the court said what Nduh has summarized, that there were problems and we may not have an issue with the result, but the process was flawed and therefore we've nullified. Now we've gone back to 2013, where the process was problematic, but we want to live with the result. The danger is this coming election of 2027. Such a precedent has been set. And of course, the High Court does not bind the Supreme Court, but judicial reasoning can find its way.
If that's the language that's being spoken already, perhaps we need to be careful about where we're going.
Can find its way there. So we are very apprehensive of a situation where the election, is problematic. There are issues with the process, but then we are told that it doesn't change the result, just live with it.
Well, maybe not one to live with, but gentlemen, the reason why we have these conversations is because it opens our minds up to possibilities, and so it's good for us all to be engaged. This is Okoh. Eric Morioki, thank you for being here with us this morning. It's 9:01. Conversations continue. Good morning.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. President William Ruto has called on Norwegian entrepreneurs to take advantage of the many opportunities in Kenya as they pursue business in Africa. Citing a youthful population and the country's strategic location in the continent, the president said Kenya is the ideal destination for investors from Norway. He added Norway brings world-leading expertise in clean energy, maritime technology, sustainable fisheries, and long-term capital backed by a sovereign wealth fund of $2 trillion that stands as a global model of patient and responsible investment. President Ruto said Norway is playing an increasingly important role in Kenya's transformation, citing Kenya's national electric mobility policy as well as other partnerships in the blue economy and fisheries. He further noted that though trade between Kenya and Norway is comparatively low at $54 million in 2025, there is an opportunity to grow it to $500 million by 2030. The Senate has also announced an appeal against the High Court's decision to pay former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua 50 million shillings in compensation for what it claimed was a violation of his rights during the Senate impeachment trial. During Tuesday's hearing, Speaker Amason Kingi said the argument that Gachagua was not given time to be heard when he suddenly collapsed and cannot be used as a reason to oblige the Senate to pay compensation to Gachagua, since even his lawyers were unaware of his whereabouts as the constitutional deadline for the case was running out.
A jury does not have to explain itself. And so as a House, we sat as a jury. We should not try to justify the decision that we made, because the decision that we made was in line with the Constitution.
No court, in the circumstances the Senate found itself in, with an application for an adjournment entirely devoid of any supporting evidence on its merits, would have granted an adjournment.
In addition, senators who contributed to the motion accused the court of exceeding its powers and attempting to question the Senate's handling of one of the most important processes for impeaching leaders in the country. Senators expressed conflicting views on the judge's decision, with Senator Boni Halwale claiming there is a clear attempt in the country by some people to humiliate other government institutions. Siaya Senator Oburu Oginga said the Senate does not have the funds to pay Gachagua.
There is an attempt in this country for certain people, irrespective of their status in society or the offices they hold, to belittle the role of institutions.
When we were here, all of us were here, when the lawyer himself told us that he did not know where his client was. Now, if he didn't know, then, Mr. Speaker, how could we know? As a Senate, how could we know? We did not know also, Mr. Speaker.
The decision has now sparked a heated debate about the jurisdiction of the court and constitutional decisions made by the Senate, which at the same time also handled the case as the High Court. The Senate has opposed a court case seeking to stop debate on a motion to review the retirement benefits of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, arguing that the petition was filed prematurely. In court documents, the Senate says the application for interim orders does not meet the legal threshold required for the court's intervention. It argues that the petitioners have failed to demonstrate any immediate harm or violation of rights. The case stems from a motion filed by Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei seeking a review of benefits granted to the retired president under the Presidential Emoluments Act. However, the Senate maintains that the motion has not yet been tabled for debate and no decision has been made. It further argues that Parliament has a constitutional mandate to conduct its business independently and that any decision made in the future can still be challenged in court if necessary. The Senate is now urging the court to dismiss the petition, describing it as premature and an interference with parliamentary proceedings. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
We look at the utterances of leaders who are aligned to broad-based, who are initially in ODM. We thought they stand for something. Now they've been exposed.
Because we are a third world country, we are poor. And not because we don't have resources, but we have been robbed senseless.
Look at the wasteful expenditure. Look at how large government lives. And we've said this is something that can be controlled. It happens in many other countries.
Internally, we used to stand and tell him, boss, hii kitu ni mbaya. And you'd say, now he doesn't, let me tell you, you saw the other parliamentary group meeting. People went there, sat, listened, looked at him. There was no plenary, left.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
You have land, Dennis. Okay, your own land. You use your own money to build it, and then you sell it to yourself.
But we don't want foreign troops on Kenyan soil.
But surely it goes a little bit deeper. This is it.
If you find the tree is withering, then you call the person who is managing that tree. Come around.
Yeah,
Why don't tell me what is
first of all, what's the problem?
Yes, what is the problem there?
How do we expect ourselves to move forward as a country?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
He is himself actually has admitted that he bribed members of parliament. So
he admitted that he bribed members of parliament.
Well, when he said
the government,
when he said that he gave the 10 million was for what?
We're always quick to point faults in somebody else before you look at your own faults as a person.
If it was Kanu's day, hii amuka naye leo ungekuwa umeenda bali sana hii. So and we must celebrate you.
There are 600 million people now globally estimated to be living with diabetes in the world. So it is a major health problem. It's the largest single disease rising pandemic that we're dealing with right now.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 9 minutes after 9 o'clock, and we get into the final hour of our conversation this Wednesday morning. If you're just tuning in, this is the Situation Room, as we've had quite a number of conversations this morning, and then we're getting into maybe the second half of what started off a conversation that we had at 7 o'clock. But we're going to go into some of these deep issues this morning and allow us then be able to do so. Our audience on KTN, thank you for keeping it here with us as we continue into these conversations this morning, and our live streams still are up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X. This is the Situation Room, and we get into conversations this hour, and you say, okay, what's the hullabaloo about? What is the issue? Well, we're going to hear the details of it this morning. Joining us in the hot seat today to then be able to look into conservation versus development. Where do you actually draw the line? Fighting for the park. Nyagovie Chege is the board chairperson of the Green Belt Movement in one of the hot seats this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Delighted to be here.
Thank you for being here. Karibu Sana. And also the executive director of Just Act is Akshay Vishwanath. He's also here with us in the hot seat. Good morning.
Good morning, and pleasure to be here.
Thank you both for being here today, because we're going to have the old age conversation about what do you give up for the other. Do you say it's okay to develop at the expense of conserving what are natural habitats that you can also benefit from? So we're going to get into some sticky waters this morning, but we're going to do it because it's necessary. Before we do that, as you may know, Dennis goes around the African continent every week. He lands in a different African country. He comes back with their proverbs and chocolate. Guess which one you will have this morning?
Interpretation.
There you go.
Yes, chocolates. Monday, they're out. Nduh does a thing. Yeah, but today we are in Guinea, yeah, and it's a rich country that has bauxite. Bauxite is used for the production of aluminium, but they also have oil, gold, and diamond. It's also considered to be pretty much the water tower of the western part of the continent. But let's get the proverb. When a mother has twins, she must sleep on her back. When a mother has twins, she must sleep on her back. Akshav, we start with you. How would you interpret it?
I guess it's a choice of where you show your love. As a mother, you might want to cuddle one if you had one child, but when you have two and they're sleeping on either side of you, you can't quite do that. So you end up sleeping on your back. So how do you share the love is how I would interpret that.
Nduh, how would you interpret it?
Wow, I love Akshay's interpretation. I would say something similar, but it's also about where your heart is, right? And because your heart is facing up, you're not hiding it, and you're opening up. The mother is opening herself up, particularly because of essentially the double
blessing.
What did you say? Blessing. That's what it is. The double blessing, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said, well interpreted, Asante Sana.
All right, so there is a question right now about countries wanting to move from one place to the next in terms of the development agenda, and can you do that at the expense of what would be conserving natural habitat that actually does a lot for you? The environmentalists and other folks who just care about a lot of these spaces, and for all of us who should, have said that, you can develop, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you protect certain spaces. Where are we now? I'll start with you, Nyagothie. Where are we? Because Monday we saw people being arrested because they said, you know what, we need to stop this thing where you want to put a road right through the middle of the park and you want to move animals in order to do that. Why would that make sense for anybody right now? And then what would be the argument against that?
So maybe let me back up a little bit and think about one of these, this question, and that even for this morning's conversation, where we are terming it as development versus conservation, and if I may, I'd like to suggest that I think it's actually a false choice that we're being asked to make.
It's an unfair choice.
It is not only unfair, but it is a false one. Right? Because I do not think that we necessarily have to say that the only way that we can advance and we can progress is, and by that I mean when we think about that, we think about the physical development, right? And the building of roads and infrastructure, that must come at the cost of the environment, and therefore we're being asked to make those choices. And I know Akshay has a lot to say on this because he's a member of the Friends of Nairobi National Park, and that's why we were out in support of them. We as Greenbelt were out in support of them this Monday. But I would say if even for those of us who have had the great opportunity to travel outside Kenya, and some of it to our neighboring countries and some of it to these other countries, Singapore, for example, Europe and the US. I know frequently we have folks telling us about Hyde Park and Central Park. One of the things that we know is that in these countries, they are actually trying to reclaim infrastructure in order to turn it green. And these environments, particularly in cities, is where we see that there is a much healthier lifestyle and living standards for the residents in the cities. So what we do is we see development as including healthy, clean, natural environments. That is part of what development looks like. And it is not just about, high-rise buildings and concrete floors and paved roads and sidewalks.
Yeah. Actually, when you look at conservation, especially, let's talk about Nairobi National Park, as it were. We have just been given an example of what other cities are doing to reclaim their position and go green, That means that development and conservation can exist peacefully. So no one has to suffer in all this thing called development. But if that were to be taken away from the dwellers, the residents of Nairobi and Kenya, what would that mean, and what would that look like in terms of quality of life that the residents have?
Right. I mean, even the fact that you mentioned the point, development and conservation in that way, again points to the false choice that Nyaguthi is mentioning, because development is actually advancing on many different things at the same time. Development is just not a financial improvement, right? You wouldn't ever say, should we have development or freedom of the press? You wouldn't say, should we have development and human rights, right? Like, development is advancing human rights, in advancing rule of law, advancing the economic status, advancing the environmental status. That is development, when you do all of that together properly. Right, so this conversation about development versus conservation is actually a very false argument, and it's one perpetuated precisely to allow things like this to happen. What we should be asking is, like, as a city, for example, what is the optimal way we want to grow as a city so that, for example, it improves mobility? We have better mobility in this country. Do we have better recreational spaces and green spaces? And Nairobi National Park is one of those spaces, but it's not the only one, right? Yes, because it has a greater status as a national park, it's globally renowned, we have charismatic wildlife in it. Yes, it has a certain unique status, and it's very central to Nairobi's identity as a city. I don't think you see any advertising around Nairobi, whether it's starting from the airport, JKIA, to the city, Safaricom, whatever it is, you look at it, that imagery of Nairobi always has the Nairobi National Park in it. It's very central to identity. So it's an identity question, number one. But in terms of quality of life, I think the issue we have in Nairobi is we actually have a lot of green spaces, but they're so concentrated so that only a few elite enjoy them, right? You think of how many parts of Nairobi actually have no green space at all. There are other parts, even wealthy suburbs of Nairobi, that are green because that green exists on people's private property. Will you go to Runda? Do you go to Karen and see a public park there? No. You don't. So the idea that Nairobi is developing because we're constantly building, but what we're actually doing is reducing the public spaces and, more importantly, public goods in Nairobi across how we think development is happening. And that is what we should be talking about and against. Development is advancing on all fronts, including the environmental front. That collectively is development.
What would be the rationale of anybody putting up a monstrosity of a construction that just happened to go through one of these spaces? What would be the rationale behind that? And, you know, I'm not even playing devil's advocate. I'm saying, for those who are saying that this is the location where we would want to do this and would attribute it to development and saying that we need this to move people from point A to point B or move goods or whatever the case may be, what would be the rationale from your understanding of why they would choose to do this?
I mean, I can certainly say a little bit more about the work that we've been doing very vocally, and I think let me talk about Karura Forest because it is near and dear to our heart, and Akshay can say a little bit more about what could be the rationale for the construction that's being proposed at the National Park. Let's just go back just a couple of years ago, where the government announced that they wanted to excise 51.64 acres from Karura Forest for the expansion of Kiambu Road. So there is their answer, right? There's, and any of us who have been on Kiambu Road in the morning or in the evening during rush hours, we know what that's like, right? And so it's reasonable. We say we've got to be able to find a way to get people to where they need to get in a way that's faster, more efficient, right? So one answer is, let's expand the road. At Greenbelt and with some of our other partners, we said, let's think about what some of the options are when it comes to the expansion of the road. So first of all, we're saying you need to expand. What happened to the road reserve, right? You need to expand. Where has been the consultation in terms of ensuring that there's public participation from the interested stakeholders? That includes the Friends of Karura Forest, who are the CFA, co-managing the forest with Kenya Forest Services. What about what we've been promised time and time again of rapid bus transit, being able to provide a public transportation that is cleaner and greener, right? Where does that fit in? And when we presented these questions in court a year ago, the judge, Justice Omolo, sided with the argument that indeed, both because of procedural matters, and especially because of procedural matters, right, the government had not followed the regulation as was needed in order to be able to proceed with this excision, right? And that we cannot forget that is a requirement of our constitution and our laws, that when the government has a proposition to excise our forests and our natural resources for ostensibly the benefit of the public, then it needs to come and consult the public and confirm that. And so, yes, there are questions around how could we improve the standard of living, as Akshay was saying, of Kenyan citizens, of residents in Nairobi, by causing the least harm to the environment. This is the precautionary principle, right, which is in our books, which is in our laws. And the government is required to observe the precautionary principle, which says if there is a real risk that there's going to be significant harm to the natural environment, then we are required to take the path of least harm.
Actually, Friends of Nairobi National Park, as we live at the moment, there has been extreme cases, rather enough cases we've had of human-wildlife conflict. And if you just speak to conservationists, they would tell you it's because we have encroached on property that belongs to these animals. You know, you talk about animals being spotted in Mungai, it's because we have got into their spaces. Today let's talk about development as a holistic matter. You mentioned about roads. One would ask the question, even as we talk about accessing Nairobi National Park, why are we not looking at conserving this in matters of even vehicles accessing this park? Why don't you have them to be EVs, cleaner for the animals, cleaner for everybody who's getting in, so that when you talk about development, everybody is involved in this conversation. But even while at it, question is there, why are you given enough time for public participation so that as we are building whatever it is we want to build in that park, because we are not clear, maybe you can tell us what it is that we want to build, was there participation for Nairobi residents, for Friends of Nairobi National Park, to give their views before that construction takes place?
Specifically to that very question, no, there wasn't. Okay, KWS will say that yes, we had one public participation meeting. They sent out questionnaires, etc., to get inputs, etc. What we have to ask ourselves is two questions. Number one, did what they carry out meet the threshold set out by the Constitution and by the relevant laws? So basically, did you meet the criteria required for that public participation? They clearly did not. Right? Saying you did one participation meeting is not what is in the laws. They had to have several such meetings. They had to have published the draft EIA, the Environmental Impact Assessment Report. When they publish it, meaning publish it in a gazette notice, so the whole public is aware that this document is out. They should be given 30 days to submit comments. After those 30 days of comments, a draft is redone. We should have had another set of public participation meetings on that draft, etc. None of that was done. In fact, the vast majority of this public participation exercise was done within their own staff. There was very little public awareness about such a project, almost no invitation to the main stakeholders to come into the public participation meetings. So basically it was a very, I would say, lackluster and rigged kind of public participation in order to tick a box and say, yes, we got people to talk about this meeting, and 85% of the people supported it. But was it done with the right intent? Because the intent behind public participation in our laws and in our constitution is not to say we just gave you information and told you about it. It's actually to invite the quality inputs from the public, whether it's the general public or very direct and specific stakeholders who are concerned with that activity, to give real inputs, to get the best development outcomes you were asking about earlier in that project, right? So when you use public participation as a tick box, and you don't even meet the legal thresholds for that, you can't say you've done public participation. What you did was, perhaps at best, and I'm being very generous here, you've done public information sharing. That is different from public participation.
Actually, what has been constructed, or what are the proposals? Because we are having different versions.
Yes.
It is a hospital for the animals at the orphanage, or is it a car park?
Yeah.
Who's telling what? Who's telling the truth? What exactly is being constructed there?
It's actually both, right? So let's take a step back. What is an orphanage? Ideally, an orphanage is almost like a rehabilitation center. When you come across sick animals in the wild for whatever reason, naturally, or some harm has come to them, some illness, some whatever it is, they are brought to the orphanage and are meant to be treated, rehabilitated, and given back to the wild, rewilded. In some cases, the injury, the illness, or if it's like a young animal that's been abandoned by its mother, there's no real hope for rewild. Like, they would not survive in the wild. So then the orphanage becomes like their permanent home to live out the rest of their lives. But the primary goal is the treatment and giving them, putting them back in the wild, which is the hospital you're referring to. So yes, you have to have facilities to keep them, to house them for the period they're in the orphanage, and then you have to have all the medical facilities and care facilities. No one here on any side of this debate is arguing the need for that. We do need the orphanage for that purpose, rehabilitation, treatment, etc. The current facilities are not adequate and don't provide the animals the kind of welfare they need. No one's arguing about that. What we are arguing about is why this specific site within the Nairobi National Park was chosen for that. Why are we giving up space from prime natural wild habitat to create a facility for caged animals? You could meet these objectives of an orphanage by building it anywhere in the city, for that matter, anywhere in the country, without taking away from natural wild habitat in a gazetted protected area. That is what we're contesting. It's not about the orphanage. I think KWS is making a huge mistake by saying, we just want to improve the welfare of animals by building this. But the question is not, do we need that facility? Is it where it's being built, why it's being built in that particular place, and how that decision was arrived at to build it there. Which comes to the second point, the parking lot. The parking lot is part of that development. But our contestation is actually, the reason they're building that parking lot is to serve the Bomas International Conference Center. But there's no way the government would come out and simply say that we are taking away land from this national park to build a parking lot for this other facility. So what they're doing is using the orphanage to say, we're building this orphanage in this new site, which was never agreed on, with this parking lot, at a capacity that an orphanage does not require, because it serves the other project.
What's the capacity?
Yeah. So the siting, the location of this new orphanage, and the size and scope at which it's being built serves a different agenda, and that is what we're trying to bring out to the public's attention, and we really hope that the public understand and follow that. And just if you allow me just to bring an analogy into this, when you talk of the debates around this conservation, development, etc., we have to just think back to what happened with flooding in Nairobi. There are laws around riparian reserves, right? We never have a debate in public about should we bend the rules a bit to build because it's conservation versus. We know we shouldn't be building on riparian for various reasons, lack of development controls, corruption, etc. That happens. But then what happens? We have a flood, right? It's the same thing with the national park. It's not a policy debate. When you set rules around a protected area, you're saying these are the boundaries of that protected area. It should be free from development, etc. You might have some spin-off activities that complement that status, so tourism, for example, visitation, etc. But you do not bend the rules and start building in there. That's the whole, I think with all these debates, that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
As a country, we have rules, we have laws, we have policies. Why don't we just follow that? These debates, these controversies come up because we're trying to bend the rules around these things. And that's why, for example, all these controversies, even what Nyaguthi has mentioned, when she talks about the judge siding and saying procedurally it was wrong. Why was it procedurally wrong? It's because we were not following the law. There was an intent not to follow the law. And if you had followed due procedure, there's no way you could have gone ahead with those projects.
Interesting. So the the KWS, the Kenya Wildlife Service, is under the Ministry of Wildlife and Tourism, right? Now, that ministry operates as a state corporation, rather KWS operates as a state corporation, so it's got its mandate, right? Its primary mandate is to conserve and manage wildlife in Kenya and enforce all related laws and regulations. It might also interest you to know that as of yesterday, you've just gotten a new PS in the name of Julius Bitok, who was moved from education. Mm-hmm. He's the man now who is going to be operationalizing all of these things that we talk about. This issue of the parking and such. Jurisdiction: managing national parks and supervising wildlife management in reserves, private sanctuaries, and conservancies falls under this directly. Now, if this is the mandate of the larger body under which KWS falls, it would appear as though everything that you mentioned this morning is in direct contravention to the very thing that the ministry is supposed to be safeguarding. And so I would have to ask, even before we even talk about whether there was public participation or whether this car park is actually for the new Bomas Hotel and whose interests might lie therein, the very mandate of the ministry is being abrogated by these things that are happening. Why are we not met with surprise at that before we even start getting to all of these other details about a car park and whose it might be and whose interest it's serving?
Yeah.
The very fundamental operation of the ministry, this is going against it.
Mm-hmm. So if Nduh, if you don't mind me answering that, and I want to tie that question to what was asked earlier about like visitation and access and using cars, etc. I think even just the way that ministry is structured speaks a lot about how wildlife and conservation is thought of in this country, because it's in the Ministry of Wildlife and Tourism, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's seen as these entities are for tourism, and tourism understood as wealthy foreign tourists.
Yes.
Right? We're not seeing this as public goods. We're not seeing this as natural heritage, natural, not national, natural heritage that Kenyans should be facilitated to access and enjoy as best possible. Mm-hmm. Right? So even when we look at like the entrance fee for the Nairobi National Park, just in the last year, increased, by a factor of like 3 almost, why are you making it more expensive for Kenyans to visit their natural heritage, right? And so when you ask that question of like this mandate of the ministry and KWS and these government institutions to safeguard and manage and etc., they don't see it as safeguarding and managing. They're looking at it, how do we commercialize?
So they're getting it wrong from the get-go, is what you're saying.
I think from a policy perspective and a mindset perspective, we're getting it very, very wrong. And I think it's both a government policy issue. I also think it's from an industry issue, particularly the tourism industry, who see particularly these areas with charismatic wildlife that are a draw for international tourists as something that should be managed in a very elitist way so that richer, more influential people visit, but through those decisions to allow that, you're actually excluding the average Kenyan from being able to visit. As you've said, like we should be seeing a situation where a park like this in the middle of the city should have organized tour buses where anyone could just go at a nominal fee, get in, have a game drive in the park. But you have the government and the industry trying to lock it in to say, no, we should have these exclusive safaris with wealthy jeeps and etc., etc. But this is not an argument you'd see in most other cities in the world. If you had Central Park, Hyde Park, whatever it is, it's free for, come in and enjoy it. It's your right to enjoy this. And I think that's what, from a policy perspective, a mindset perspective, from the government particularly, and these government institutions, safeguard those resources. Safeguard, not develop them. Safeguard them, manage them well, make sure Kenyans can access them as part of their natural heritage. Then you wouldn't even have this question of like, why are we creating these facilities so the vast majority of Kenyans can go into a built infrastructure environment when they could actually be going into the national park?
Nduh, what will it take for that mindset to change? Why do I say that? Because the fight to protect our environment did not start today. We know the story of Uhuru Park and the fight Wangari Maathai together with Kenyan women put up to say, we are going to protect this space. Today we're talking about Friends of Karura again, fighting to protect that space. Now we are at the National Park. We'll not even talk about Masai Mara to begin with, because that's another fight altogether. What will it take for us to shift the mindset and look at the resources that we do have, not from a commercial perspective, but as a natural heritage that all of us have a piece of, that belongs to us, and we must protect it with our lives? Because we get rid of Nairobi National Park today. What are we saying? Because anytime you touch down, please go enjoy the only national park in the world within a capital city. But we are busy destroying them. What will it take for us to change that policy or to look at things differently?
Listen, Dennis, I think we have our answer, because when I look in the forestry space, which is a very particular area, segment, but also looking at the environment more broadly, we have the blueprint that we created over 20 years ago. So let's take a look at, there was the huge fight, as you were mentioning, Greenbelt has been around for nearly 50 years. And Professor Madai, the founder of the organization, was very, very clear in terms of telling us, think about your rights to your environment and what you, as an individual, we started with the rural women, the barefoot foresters, right? In terms of thinking about their own environment, what does it take to protect their environment, and also directly to make sure that they're benefiting from the protection of the environment. So that link was made very clear. Then, after she became the assistant minister for the environment, after the elections, when we had our new dispensation, and she was elected. This was in 2002. In 2002, when she was elected and appointed assistant minister for the environment, there was a huge push to think about how do we, quote unquote, do forest protection, forest management, which led to the Forest Conservation and Management Act at that time. And then KFS was created to work with communities to protect the environment. This is not a competition, between the government which are the custodians of the natural environment, and the communities who, especially those who are adjacent to the forests, but not just them. All of us, as the Constitution says, we have an obligation in the Constitution as the citizens to support the government in the protection of our environment, so that we can all achieve and attain the rights to a clean and healthy environment. Our values are there. We have them in the Constitution, right? So like Akshay was saying, is that what does it take now to ensure that we are realizing our right to a clean and healthy environment, that we are holding our government officials, both the elected ones and those in the public service, to meet and to implement the laws and regulations as they should be. So what it also takes is for us as Kenyans, one is a sense of an awareness, right, and an understanding, and two, to remember this conversation that we're having again today is coming back. This is what we were talking about 25 years ago. So that means that we do not let our guard down. It doesn't mean we take anything for granted. It means that it is a recommitment of Kenyans every generation to ensure that we are talking about and investing in and committed to protecting our environment, because we both believe that this is a right for all of us, and that it is also an obligation to protect our environment, not just for us, but for our children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren.
And something to that. I mean, I think the what happened in Karura Forest, not the recent tree nursery development controversy, but the previous one, the takeover from Friends of Karura Forest of the management of the forest. When you look at it, the root of that was the resources coming in, right? People paying their entrance fee and coming in, and who has control of that? Of course, there are accusations that, money was not managed properly, etc., etc. But when I look at that and I realize, if a government was keen on safeguarding, managing these natural resources and having them protected for Kenyans, then would the government say, actually, we're taking over because we feel Kenyans should not be paying for this? We want to use taxpayer money to maintain this forest and make sure Kenyans get in free. They didn't do that. they took over because they saw money was coming in. If Karura Forest was as it was 20, 25 years ago and no one was visiting, would the government have done a takeover and said, we want to manage this and make it better for Kenyans, So that's, you understand the thinking behind that. It's not about service delivery to Kenyans. It's not about improving their quality of life. It's control over resources and how those opportunities are created for a few people.
Okay, so there's a mandate. There are obviously things that are going. There are people who are protesting, but the thing is going on. So it's clear that whatever is being said is not being adhered to, but that there's an umbrella understanding that these spaces need to be protected, but they're not being protected. So what are we really doing? That's the nitty-gritty here. That we have conversations, people protest and get arrested, but that it still continues as though those things never happened. So we're staring at impunity. That's very clear. So then the question becomes, what then must be done next? From where you sit, from both of them, we start with you, Nyagovi. What needs to be done? Because the construction did not stop on Monday evening. If we wake up this morning and we go and see, it still continues. There are still people signing checks, there are still people doing things, and that those spaces continue to whittle away. So what needs to be done? Because it's going to be Cement City in a minute.
Right. I mean, what a horrific picture you've painted there.
Sad but true,
right? And can you imagine us living in Nairobi the way it is? And essentially, if you are fortunate enough to live in certain neighborhoods, that is the only respite that you get. So here's the thing: Kenyans have shown that they do not give up. Right? We have seen a commitment from Kenyans time and time again to come back and demand from the duty bearers, from the government, to deliver what is owed to us. The other thing that we have also seen very clearly is that the battles are not won in a day, and they're not won against only one person. We can go back to, let's go back to the Uhuru Park, and that you talked about it in 1989. Remember, we did not even have the law on our side. Back then, you could not sue the government to protect the environment as an individual, but there was a real effort in terms of ensuring that the public understood what was at stake, right? And then to provide opportunities for the public to engage, and then thirdly to think about who else has interests here, that either they're unaware, they don't understand what's going on, or they are need to be convinced in order to pull their support, right? That successfully happened in the struggle for Uhuru Park in 1989. In 1999, we saw something similar for Karura Forest, and we've seen that time and time again around the country. So what's really important is to ensure that we do not feel as though that we will give up, even though right now the laws that you're talking about there's real impunity here that we have seen. We are seeing, as we know, that there's a conversation about what is happening in Imenti. What in the world are we thinking about? Of saying that we're going to, without the requisite public participation, excise 200 acres for essentially luxury private developments that the majority of Meru residents and certainly Kenyan citizens will never see the inside of, right? For these vanity projects in essence. We have just seen pictures last week of it. Apparently it looks like there are new intentions for Uhuru Park, right? And this is what we're hearing about. So I think what's really important is we must recall that because of our values, because we believe in our right to a clean and healthy environment, because we believe in holding our governments accountable for what they owe to us, that this is not a fight that we're going to give up on. Our ancestors, when they were struggling for independence against the empire where the sun never set, did not believe, did not participate because they were sure that they were going to win, right? There was no guarantee that they were going to win, but they knew they had to because that was the right thing. That is what we do. I think someone called us activists as though it was a slur the other day, and I will say I am very proud to be called one, because those are those of us who are advocating for a vision of a country that is fair, that is just, and where we truly are able to realize the promise of our constitution.
Okay, certainly everybody understands the importance of these spaces that we do have. You know, if you go to Maasai, they will tell you, we live well with these animals, protect this space, you know. You come to Nairobi, friends of Nairobi National Park will tell you, we'll have this space and we're going to fight, protect it. Go to Karura, it is the same story. But similarly, those who have been given the mandate, those who have the machinery from the government to protect these spaces, seemingly do not see the value in it. Because you talk about the Maasai National Park, and one would look at that and how KWS gave the approvals for the construction of that hotel there, and one asked the question, as the person who's been given the power to protect that space, what are you doing? You come to Nairobi National Park, again, look at the kind of public participation that you're talking about. Those with the mandate to do that are failing.
Yes.
Is that the weakest link in this fight in protecting our spaces?
Yes, I would say so, in the sense that first, it's an understanding of a mandate, but also understanding why you have that mandate, right? They don't seem to understand that. They don't seem to appreciate their mandate in this. In fact, if anything, it seems that many of these institutions are headed by individuals who want to rubber stamp anything that comes from the executive, right? They don't understand their job is actually to be the counterbalance to some of those political decisions and say, oh, I am in charge of natural resources or a national park or a forest. And if a decision or a proposal even, let's not even say a decision, a proposal comes my way, I have to look at what the mandate is of my office, of my institution, and say, in the interests of that mandate, how do I respond to this proposal? And so even if it's coming from the highest levels of government, they should be that stop and say, hey, actually, the laws say this, and therefore this proposal can't work. Or if it's legally okay, policy-wise, is it still the right decision to be made? What we have in Kenya is these government institutions are not being the counterbalance to these issues. They're being the rubber stampers to these issues. So they're not carrying out their mandate. And I think part of the reason of that is beyond the politics and political survival for a lot of these individuals heading these institutions, is that I think there's a general mindset in government that public land, whether it's forests, national parks, etc., belong to the government. And what they don't realize is when we talk of public land and natural resources, those institutions manage those resources on behalf of the Kenyan public. And they need to be accountable and transparent to the people of Kenya around how they use those resources, how they manage them, how they protect them, and how they develop them. That understanding is completely missing. And I think that is why you see such a almost fictional attempt to engage in public participation and come up with these proposals, because they don't understand that. This is not their property. It's the property of the people of Kenya, and they have a mandate to be accountable and transparent to the people of Kenya on how they carry out their roles with respect to those resources.
What's going to move this needle? Because you could argue that you could spend all your time, we could all, have spaces whereby we speak about such things. There can be public engagements, people can come and have debates and share, but without the fundamental mind shift, that some of these things will not happen. And so many say the mind shift may not take place, so what you need to do is remove the person. And this is now where politics plays with some of these policies in the same space. So can we tie some of these things to then the importance of who you put in positions of leadership when it then comes to other issues and how they play out? That when you're at the ballot, you're not necessarily thinking, okay, so what I'm voting for is to make sure that the person who is sitting there is going to make sure that there's no park that's built in the middle of... You're not thinking that when you're voting. What you should be thinking is, whom am I going to vote for that is going to ensure everything constitutionally is going to go alongside sovereignty of the people, protection of the people, securing of livelihoods and anything attached to that. So how do we combine these things to work in the same space, whereby you realize that none of these things operate in isolation?
Yeah, no, I think that's such an important point, and we actually do see that in our world, right? And I will, I'm not sure how many people remember this, but when we had the campaigns to educate before we passed the 2010 Constitution, there was a lot of activity from civil society, and us as Greenbelt were very, very active and actually going out amongst the communities that we worked with to try and explain what this Constitution was about, how important it was that the chapters within the Constitution that were directly and also indirectly connected to our interests were there, to explain why that mattered. So when the referendum came, right, our Constitution passed. It wasn't 100%, but it was a very clear, distinct majority, because that Constitution, our Constitution, reflected the will of the people. Now, absolutely correct that there is a connection with who we have three arms of government, right? We have the executive, we have the National Assembly, our elected officials, and we also have the judiciary, right? And we have this similarly replicated at the county level. What is so important, and this is some of the work that we are doing both at GBM and also at the Wangari Maathai Foundation, is that we are ensuring that we're helping educate the next generation of leaders, right? Because there's a legacy from our founder with the values that she truly believed in, that were the foundation of her work, which reflected as well into the different avenues that she engaged in professionally, which included running, right? And she ran for election and lost and won, right? And that's because we believe that you need to have the right people in place. Yeah, we need to make sure we elect them. And how do we do that? Part of this is ensuring that, one, that we do not shy away from electoral politics. I remember when Professor Maathai first started talking about running for office, and several of us were like, oh, but that's, what do we say about politics? Politics is dirty. Why would you want to get involved in that when you're so pristine? We need to move away from that, yeah? Politics is what we make of it. We cannot always complain that the right people are not in place. And so it also means that we have to do a lot of education and informing what our key issues are. We have that. In many ways, we're a young democracy, right? So we've come a really long way in terms of the advancements we've made, but we still have a ways to go. Which means that when we are we're encouraging our young folks to run for office, we're also tooling them, we're also preparing them in order to, once they reach these positions, whether it's at the county level or at the national level, they truly are able to engage from a point of knowledge with the issues. Thirdly, we will become, hopefully, countries where our parties are driven by ideology and not by party, right? And so that's what we are looking for.
Ashay, I want to look at it from, when you look at on all these resources that we do have, it's Kenyans, us, who live around them. Therefore, we ought to be the primary protectors of the same, together with the agencies that have been given the mandate to protect them. Then one ask the question, with everything that is happening around, have we been outmaneuvered? Have we let our guard down? Or have we been let down by those who've been given those powers? And that notwithstanding, then, with what Nyaguthi is saying, we cannot afford not to let our environments not be part and parcel of conversations whenever we get into political silly season. Because if someone comes to vie, say, in next to Karura Forest, then questions would be, what is your plan around protecting our space? Anyone coming to Langata or Karen constituencies, what should be the plan? Because then the people should form the agenda for them around resources that we own. Do you reckon that would in one way or the other contribute in the overall change on how we look at these resources?
Exactly. The first answer to your question is yes, we've been let down. Okay. We've been let down, for sure. But we are only let down when you talk of specific instances like what's happening in Nairobi National Park and what's happening in Karura, etc. But when you put it all together, not only are we being let down, but we allow ourselves to be let down.
Okay.
All right? And that has to shift. So when people use the term activists and stuff as a slur, actually I would say all Kenyans need to be full-time activists.
Okay.
It is our civic duty to be full-time activists. You don't have to fight every single issue because, we're human, we have only certain bandwidth, but you'll have things that concern you, right? So you might have, as a parent, you would have concerns around education because your kids are going through the education system, and a broken education system does not help those kids, doesn't help that household, doesn't help the society, right? That might be an issue you fight in, but you put yourself all in. I think what we have a challenge here is two things. One is, you talked about elections and how you choose someone. That's just one part of that whole system, right? Yep. The day you choose someone, you have every right to choose someone who feel will best further your interests, whatever it might be, right? Once they get the job, how do you make sure they do their job? That's where we fall short. And that means, being informed about what's happening. So, these conversations is not just us having conversations, because a topic flared up on Monday. No. It's people should be aware, hey, the people with these mandates, the people who make decisions, the lawmakers are going on this trajectory, and I should be informed about what's happening so that I convert that knowledge and hopefully public anger into political pressure to get the right things done. Right? And you would find many ways to do that. Everything from a simple action as sharing information from your phone on social media to writing your thoughts about it to influencing a circle of friends or family you have around you. You can start from the very basics, and of course you can go right to the top where you're managing a stakeholder group like Friends of Nairobi National Park, managing institutions like Greenbelt Movement or Just Act or whatever it is. You find ways to exercise your rights as an active citizen, be that full-time activist. That is actually our role and our duty as Kenyans. And so when we see bad decisions being made like this, we should take action. And to your earlier question, you were asking we did the protest, it's impunity, they're still constructing. It's because we have to move from just the conversation and highlighting to issue. What are the tangible routes we're taking to have political pressure and action? So, for example, the Bomas International Conference Center itself has been flagged as illegally procured by the Auditor General. This was months ago.
Yeah.
You ask yourself, why aren't the lawmakers...
The declaration is by the Auditor General and not the acquisition by the... Okay.
No, the Auditor General said the way this conference center was procured in terms of the contracts for construction and how it was developed, the whole idea around it was illegally done.
Yes.
It did not follow certain rules around financial management in this country. If that project is the one leading to this car park in Nairobi National Park. The question is, you see how everything suddenly becomes interrelated. Conservation is not, the issues in conservation are not for conservation alone. They're tied to the broader political challenges, governance challenges in this country. And so you have to target everything in that holistic way. So when you now talk about how do we tackle this issue because there's political pressure, you start asking the questions. The Auditor General flagged this. The Parliamentary Committee on Finance and etc., why did they not take it up and question this project? How are we allowing one illegality to lead to another illegality, which is then taking away our natural heritage in Nairobi National Park?
Indeed.
Right? The same way some of those decisions take away freedom of press, freedom of speech, other human rights,
freedom of assembly,
other economic rights, the corruption, all of that. It's all tied together. So we need to first be informed as people, convert that public knowledge into action, hold our lawmakers to account, not just the guy at the top. Why is your MP not saying something about this? Why, et cetera, your MCA, whatever. We have to go to the court and ask the courts, hey, this is the law. The mandate of the court is to ensure the law is followed and our rights are protected. So we need to present the legal arguments around this and say, okay, can the court pronounce himself of whether this is legal or illegal? And if it's illegal, it's stopped completely.
Yeah.
Remember, you only need one illegality to stop something.
Indeed.
Exactly. So you don't have to have a whole raft of things. If they've procedurally not done something even on one aspect, this project should be put to a halt. We have to put public and political pressure. So how do we petition the Senate, etc., to look into these issues and ask these questions and make sure the government is held to account? And by that way, the people are holding government to account.
It takes a collective conversation, but then engagement across board for everybody, and that's why it's important that we talk about these things. Our time has come to an end this morning, but that we were able to look into the depth of this matter, and that we won't stop until the needle is moved. Thank you both for joining us in this conversation. Nyagothie Shege is the board chairperson of the Greenbelt Movement. Ash K. Vishwanath is the executive director of I beg your pardon, the executive director of Just Act, and have both joined us this morning. Thank you for being part of this conversation with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Good morning, everybody. At a minute past 10 o'clock, thank you for being part of the Situation Room this morning as we went into these conversations necessary for us to continue them as we do every morning. Nduh Denison, good morning. Have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll talk again tomorrow, God willing. Good morning.
More of the classics and the hits you love.
I don't want myself, just love me.